The great YouTube tournament has begun. 1,000 new channels will enter, but only one will reach the heavens. Welcome to Manhwa Novel Recap, the underdog contestant with a hidden SSS rank skill. We're fighting our way up the bracket with cinematic recaps, starting with our first match. Mist, Might, and Mayhem. Lend us your strength with a like, join our faction by subscribing, and ring the bell to cheer us on to victory. The lingering scent of blood still clung to the air, a stark counterpoint to Mok Gyeong-un's nonchalant demeanor. He addressed the boy in the room, his voice a low, even murmur. "Don't mind it," he stated, as if the crumpled form of Yeom-ga was a mere triviality, not a testament to the swift, brutal violence that had just unfolded. "Just continue what you were doing." The boy, rigid with unspeakable fear, found his throat constricted. His dreams, once vibrant with the fleeting honor of sharing a space with a martial legend like Yeom-ga, now lay shattered. Yeom-ga of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave, a name that commanded respect and evoked power, lay prone, a broken shell. A monstrous change had swept through the room. The boy acknowledged Mok Gyeong-un's previous standout performance, yet the internal energy restrictions had been lifted. To inflict such a devastating defeat on Yeom-ga, a master whose power now flowed freely, was an act of unfathomable might. "What is he?" the question echoed, a frantic, silent plea for understanding. "Is he some kind of demon?" Mok Gyeong-un, seemingly oblivious to the boy's silent terror, continued with his task. He gripped Yeom-ga's matted hair, the unconscious body a heavy, limp weight, and dragged him towards the corridor. A strangled gasp escaped the boy's lips. He instinctively pushed himself upright, a desperate urge to intervene, however futile, seizing him. "Why?" Mok Gyeong-un's voice, smooth and unhurried, cut through the tension. "Do you want to follow along too?" The question hung in the air, cold and stark. The boy faltered, his legs giving way beneath him. He shook his head frantically, his only response. That's not it," he stammered, his words barely a whisper. "You're wise." Mok Gyeong-un's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "Then just stay there." The heavy door closed with a dull thud, a sound of chilling finality. The boy slumped onto the bed, his muscles trembling, a cold dread seeping into his bones. He knew, with a certainty that churned his stomach, that he would never find the courage to follow. Yeom-ga was utterly alone. Outside, Mok Gyeong-un paused, his gaze falling upon Yeom-ga's horribly disfigured face. A soft groan escaped him. The damage was substantial. Yeom-ga's face was a grotesque mask of swollen flesh and bruised, congealed blood. The moment he had witnessed the red glow of Yeom-ga's tattoo, an instinctive sense of lethal intent had surged through him. He had reacted, making the man into this. "You shouldn't have been so rough," the blue spirit's voice, a quiet, gentle reprimand, echoed in his mind. "That's true," Mok Gyeong-un murmured, almost to himself. He had merely intended a moderate beating, just enough to compel alliance, to secure a new teammate. This outcome, however, had undeniably exceeded moderates. Yet, beyond the unexpected brutality, a different realization settled within him. Was the peak realm this weak? Among the 80 boys who had shed the shackles of internal energy, 7 were estimated to have reached the peak realm. Yeom-ga of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave was one of them. Mok Gyeong-un had selected him not only for team formation, but also to test his own strength against a foe who had openly displayed hostility. But the test had yielded an anticlimactic result. Yeom-ga had been unexpectedly frail. He was slow. The thought struck him with startling clarity. Even during his time in the Yeom-mok sword manor, he could see the movements of masters, but his body's reaction had lagged. Now, the movements of Yeom-ga, a peak realm master, felt sluggish, almost ponderous. "That's what I want to say, mortal." The blue spirit's unspoken retort carried a note of profound, astonished wonder. She had indeed opened his middle donjon, aligning him with the subtle principles of the 8 thought-shattering techniques. His murderous energy had soared to the pinnacle of peak realm. She had predicted parity, perhaps a slight edge. Yet Mok Gyeong-un had not simply defeated Yeom-ga. He had utterly, devastatingly overwhelmed him. Is this guy's martial talent far exceeding my expectations? The question vibrated with a suppressed excitement. Such rapid progress, if it continued, held immense promise for the future. She yearned to voice her astonishment, but wisdom prevailed. Arrogance could easily derail his enlightenment. "Don't jump to conclusions," she cautioned, her tone deliberately even. Although he subdued him quite easily, this time, that stupid guy's carelessness played a big part in it. Mok Gyeong-un merely shrugged. There was a kernel of truth in her words. Judging the true skill of a peak realm master based solely on Yomga's swift defeat was premature. "But it's getting interesting," the blue spirit continued, a hint of genuine curiosity in her spiritual voice. "What is?" Mok Gyeong-un inquired. "I was curious how the energy of death would work, and now it has been confirmed." Mok Gyeong-un's memory flashed back to Yomga's bewildered words, muffled by pain and shock. "If it's not scattered energy poison, then why is my internal energy scattering whenever I come into contact with you?" The question had been a puzzle. "Can you tell why that is?" "It seems to be offset by the energy of death." "Offset?" "Yes. You said you experienced the phenomenon of energy dispersing when others injected true energy to occupy your acupoints or check your body's condition, right?" "Yes." "The energy you possess is completely opposite to the energy of living humans. So you're saying that energy was offset because it's completely opposite. That's how it should be seen. The energy of yang and life will invigorate vitality, but your death energy rather brings death." The blue spirit theorized that this fundamental opposition further caused the opponent's energy to disperse. This was unprecedented in the martial world. Even she, with all her ancient knowledge, couldn't predict the full implications of this death energy. But if it could truly mimic the effects of scattered energy poison, it was a terrifying development. A natural enemy had emerged for all martial artists. It seems quite useful. Mok Gyeong-un's pleasure was palpable. The blue spirit's warning was immediate. Just in case, make sure to control it. Control? Yes. If it becomes known that you can scatter the opponent's energy, you may face the vigilance of everyone before you fully mature. That could be the case. He considered her words. Martial artists would certainly become wary. To fight him would mean their internal energy scattering, a debilitating disadvantage unless their strength vastly outweighed his. How do I control it? Phew! Your learning order is really a mess. The blue spirit clicked her tongue, a sound of exasperated resignation. A normal peak realm master would have a natural grasp of energy transmission. Mok Gyeong-un, despite his pinnacle strength, couldn't even perform basic external or internal meridians. "I'll have to keep beating it into him whenever there's a chance," she resolved. The path was already unconventional. She would simply adapt. They arrived at the lodging room. It was empty. While most shared, Mok Gyeong-un was an anomaly. No one wanted to share a space with him. Fortunately, a vacant room had been available. A low groan escaped Yomga's lips. Consciousness returned to him, slow and agonizing. Mok Gyeong-un looked down, a faint sense of fortune on his face, meeting Yomga's eyes. A jolt of pure terror coursed through Yomga's body. He flinched, a wave of nausea washing over him. The image of Mok Gyeong-un's face, looming over him as the blows rained down, had been seared into his memory. He had truly believed he would die. This visceral fear was a reaction he could not control. "Had you come to your senses?" Mok Gyeong-un asked, his voice devoid of any real concern. What the hell, Twi." Yomga's mouth tasted of blood and pain. He spat, a broken tooth landing on the floor. His entire mouth was numb, his tongue seemingly bitten multiple times. "Does it hurt a lot?" Yomga stared, an absurd expression on his mangled face. Was that even a question? Mok Gyeong-un scratched his head, feigning mild remorse. "I hit you a bit too hard even though I wasn't going to kill you. But it doesn't seem too bad since you've gotten a more manly face." This bastard now, the thought raged in Yomga's mind. Was he mocking him? Every facial muscle throbbed as if seared by fire. His eyes were swollen nearly shut. And yet, this man spoke words of pure provocation. To this broken shell of a man, Mok Gyeong-un delivered his next question. "How about it? Do you want to join my team?" Yomga gritted his teeth, the effort sending fresh waves of agony through his jaw. He managed to force out a single guttural word. Uff. He would sooner perish than align himself with this monster. He knew he was no match, his defeat absolute, but he refused to surrender his will, his spirit, to such a being. Mok Gyeong-un clapped his hands lightly, the sound sharp in the quiet room. An unyielding will that doesn't submit. He nodded, a strange appreciation in his gaze. Yeom-ga remained silent, glaring. What a pity. I thought you would be quite useful, so I wanted us to be on the same team. A wave of profound relief washed over Yeom-ga. He had feared this madman, this ominous presence, would simply kill him on a whim. But it seemed Mok Gyeong-un was not so impulsively violent. Let's not associate with him. The incident had solidified his conviction. Mok Gyeong-un was a dangerous, chaotic force. Nothing good could come from involvement or even provocation. Yeom-ga trembled, gathering what little strength remained to push himself up, desperate to escape the room. But then, Mok Gyeong-un's finger, light yet unyielding, pressed against Yeom-ga's forehead. It wasn't a forceful push, but Yeom-ga, already struggling, fell back with a soft thud. What are you doing? He gasped, confusion warring with fear. Who said you could go? Mok Gyeong-un's smile widened, a predatory curve. What? Yeom-ga's mind reeled. Hadn't Mok Gyeong-un just conceded? There was no reason to keep him. What was this? A swift movement, a blur of motion, and Mok Gyeong-un produced a small wooden puppet from his tunic. With his free hand he formed a strange hand seal, his lips moving in a low, resonant chant. The origin of fate, the cycle of reincarnation, release. Damn it! A horrifying realization slammed into him. His acupoints had been sealed, quietly, imperceptibly. No wonder his limbs felt like dead weight. Then, an icy dread seeped into his bones, a sensation so alien, so profoundly unpleasant that it sent shivers through his entire body. It felt as though something was slowly, inexorably permeating his very being, an invasion that stole his breath. You? What are you doing to me? Ugh! Yeom-ga's body arched, twisting like a tortured shrimp. Mok Gyeong-un merely smiled. I'll make good use of that body. What the hell is that, Ugh? His body convulsed violently, black veins bulging grotesquely on his neck and face. His eyes rolled back into his head, a grotesque spectacle. But the horror was fleeting. In a matter of seconds, the twisting, shuddering form of Yeom-ga relaxed, returning to an unsettling stillness. When his eyes reopened, they held a different light, a chilling absence of the man who had been. How is the body, demonic monk? Mok Gyeong-un inquired. It seems usable. The voice was deeper, older, filled with a satisfied resonance. The vengeful spirit, the demonic monk, had taken residence. He touched his face, a faint ripple passing through the damaged flesh. The broken nose bridge straightened, the swollen features receding, approximating Yeom-ga's original appearance. Oh ho! Mok Gyeong-un watched, a flicker of interest in his eyes. The broken parts weren't fully restored, but the improvement was significant. Adjusting the possessed body to a desired state to some extent is not a difficult task, the blue spirit explained. Unlike humans whose souls are bound, we can freely manipulate the bodies we occupy. It seems so. This ability held intriguing possibilities. Footsteps sounded, approaching the door. Mok Gyeong-un turned his gaze, a quiet readiness in his stance. The footsteps were light, yet an unnatural dragging quality hinted at injury. A soft knock followed. Come in! The door swung open, revealing an unexpected figure. Mo-ha-rang of the Demon Fire Hall stood there. Mok Gyeong-un had assumed she would be recovering, circulating her energy, tending to her injuries. Her presence was a surprise. At that moment, the green spirit Gyu Soha's voice, a high-pitched whine, pierced Mok Gyeong-un's thoughts. Master! Master! Give me that human's body. He clearly admired Mo-ha-rang's form. The blue spirit immediately retorted, You brat. You insisted you were a man, so why are you clamoring for a woman's body? Gyu Soha fell silent. Ignoring their bickering, Mok Gyeong-un offered Mo-ha-rang a light smile. What brings you here? Mo-ha-rang's eyes, keen and assessing, swept past Mok Gyeong-un, settling on the figure of the new Yeom-ga. Mok Gyeong-un casually gestured. Ah, this person has agreed to join our team. Demonic monk, playing the part, gave a subtle nod. Mohaha-rang's gaze returned to Mok Gyeong-un, a furrow in her brow. "What did you do?" she asked, her voice quiet but firm. "What do you mean, what did I do?" "That's not Yom-ga." One of Mok Gyeong-un's eyebrows arched almost imperceptibly. "What prompted such confidence? What are you talking about?" He countered, his tone perfectly neutral. "That guy with a strong sense of pride wouldn't easily submit to you, and Yom-ga is not the type to go under someone else." Her logic was sound, yet it didn't fully explain her certainty. Mok Gyeong-un smirked. He remembered her quick wit during the flag battle, her uncanny ability to deduce his intent, and then a memory surfaced. Didn't she say their eyes met? Mohaha-rang had claimed to have seen the green spirit Gu Soha. At the time, he dismissed it as coincidence. But if it was true, did she possess the rare talent of a diviner? Intrigued, Mok Gyeong-un pointed to Yom-ga. "Then, if this person is not Yom-ga, what is he?" "I don't know." She hesitated. "If you don't know, why did you say that?" "I saw it." "Saw what?" That ghost-like thing that was wearing chains next to you." Her voice trailed off, as if she herself struggled to believe her own words. She sought confirmation. If what she saw was real, then Mok Gyeong-un was manipulating a ghost, a strange, terrifying being. "Ghost-like thing, you say?" Mok Gyeong-un mused, his gaze unwavering. "At that time, my mind was hazy, but I saw you conversing with it." Even as she spoke, her conviction wavered. Mok Gyeong-un simply stared, a small smile playing on his lips. Moha-rang grew confused. As a product of the Demon Fire Hall, an elite assassin group, she had been trained to read subtle tells, to dissect human psychology. I can't read him." His expression was a blank slate, his eyes unfathomable. Simple emotions were clear, but anything deeper was utterly obscured. She bit her lip, a flicker of doubt in her eyes. "Is it a misunderstanding?" She had poured out her raw speculation, her strange vision, yet he showed no reaction beyond a detached curiosity. In the end, she capitulated. "Sorry. I must have been seeing things because of the severe bleeding at that time." She turned, ready to leave, to dismiss the bizarre interaction as a symptom of her own injuries. Then a rapid succession of soft, rhythmic clicks. The origin of fate, the cycle of reincarnation, release. The incantation, spoken from behind her, froze her in place. Slowly, she turned her head. A shudder, cold and undeniable, ran through her body. Standing beside Mok Gyeong-un, a translucent, ethereal figure shimmered into focus. It was a girl, her hair half-white, her form indistinct, bound by heavy, spectral chains. "Ah!" The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. What she had seen was real. As amazement warred with terror, the green spirit Ju Soha extended a spectral hand. Chains, impossibly swift and silent, materialized, wrapping around Moha-rang's body, binding her in place. Mok Gyeong-un's smile, now fully formed, was devoid of warmth, filled instead with chilling malice. "The price for seeing what you wanted is quite steep, but are you okay with that?" The air still hummed with the recent violence, thick with the scent of fear and the faint coppery tang of fresh blood. A young boy, huddled on the bed, trembled uncontrollably, his gaze fixed on the figure of Mok Gyeong-un. Just moments ago, Yom-ga, a formidable name from the Vermilion Slaughter Cave, had stood before them, full of fierce pride. Now he lay a broken, unmoving heap. The boy's mind reeled. What kind of monster was this man? He had seen Mok Gyeong-un's unusual prowess during the earlier trials, yet the internal energy restrictions had since been lifted for everyone. To so utterly dismantle Yom-ga, whose peak realm power was now unleashed, seemed impossible. Mok Gyeong-un, oblivious to the boy's terror, simply flicked a crimson-stained hand. He then grasped Yom-ga's hair, pulling the unconscious body towards the door. The boy instinctively moved to intervene. "Why? Do you want to follow along too?" Mok Gyeong-un's voice was a soft, almost pleasant inquiry, yet it contained an icy current that froze the boy mid-motion. He shook his head wildly, the fear palpable. That's not it," Mok Gyeong-un offered a brief, satisfied nod. "You're wise. Then just stay there." The door clicked shut with a hollow thud, leaving the boy to collapse onto the bed, his legs suddenly weak and useless. He possessed no courage to pursue, no strength to help, In the quiet corridor, Mok Gyeong-un surveyed Yong-ga's ruined face. A soft grunt escaped his lips. The man's features were a pulpy mess, almost unrecognizable. His own instincts had flared. Yong-ga's tattoo had glowed, a clear sign of lethal intent. He had acted. "You shouldn't have been so rough," a soft, ethereal voice murmured in his mind. It was the blue spirit. "That's true," Mok Gyeong-un agreed. His initial goal had been to simply subdue Yong-ga, to bring him onto his team. He hadn't intended this level of brutality. But something else lingered. Was the peak realm this weak? This question resonated with a genuine surprise within him. Among the 80 boys, only 7 were thought to have achieved the peak realm, and Yong-ga was one of them. Mok Gyeong-un had singled him out, not just for recruitment, but also to truly gauge his own formidable power against a recognized master. Yet Yong-ga had been disturbingly slow. Even in the Yeom-mok sword manner, when he had observed the movements of so-called first-class masters, his physical body had lagged behind his perception. Now Yong-ga's peak realm movements felt sluggish, almost ponderous. "That's what I want to say, mortal." The blue spirit's tone held an echo of her own astonishment. Though Mok Gyeong-un had opened his middle donjon, his murderous energy reaching the pinnacle of peak realm in terms of raw power, she had predicted a near-equal fight, given his lack of foundational enlightenment. Instead, he had utterly overwhelmed Yong-ga. Is this guy's martial talent far exceeding my expectations? A thrill, cold and sharp, shot through her. If this terrifying pace of growth continued, the future was indeed an exciting prospect. She longed to voice her exhilaration, but the mortal must not grow complacent. "Don't jump to conclusions," she cautioned. Although he subdued him quite easily, that stupid guy's carelessness played a big part in it. Mok Gyeong-un shrugged. There was merit to her words. It was indeed too soon to truly assess the strength of a peak realm master based on Yong-ga alone. "But it's getting interesting," he mused, a flicker of dark amusement in his eyes. "I was curious how the energy of death would work, and now it has been confirmed." He remembered Yong-ga's confused words. "If it's not scattered energy poison, then why is my internal energy scattering whenever I come into contact with you?" That query had puzzled him. "Can you tell why that is?" he asked the blue spirit. "It seems to be offset by the energy of death." "Offset?" "Yes. You said you experienced the phenomenon of energy dispersing when others injected true energy to occupy your acupoints or check your body's condition, right?" "Yes." "The energy you possess is completely opposite to the energy of living humans." Mok Gyeong-un observed this. "So you're saying that energy was offset because it's completely opposite?" "That's how it should be seen. The energy of yang and life invigorates vitality, but your death energy rather brings death. Perhaps this inherent opposition further caused the hostile energy to dissipate. This was merely an assumption, for such a phenomenon had never before been witnessed in the martial world. Even she, a timeless spirit, could not precisely foresee the future impact of this death energy. But if it truly held the power to scatter an opponent's energy, akin to the infamous scattered energy poison, it was as if a tremendous, terrifying natural enemy had suddenly appeared for all martial artists. "It seems quite useful," Mok Gyeong-un said, a pleased, dangerous glint in his eye. The blue spirit immediately countered. "Just in case, make sure to control it." "Control?" "Yes. If it becomes known that you can scatter the opponent's energy, you may face the vigilance of everyone before you fully mature." That could be the case. Indeed, any martial artist would become wary. Fighting Mok Gyeong-un would mean their internal energy would dissipate during combat, a significant disadvantage unless they possessed overwhelming power. How do I control it? "Phew, your learning order is really a mess," the blue spirit sighed, a hint of exasperation in her ancient voice. Had he followed the normal path to the peak realm, he would have long since mastered the methods of energy transmission. Yet, despite his pinnacle power, Mok Gyeong-un couldn't even perform external meridians, which directly transmitted energy, nor internal and foot meridians, which sent energy within the body. "I'll have to keep beating it into him whenever there's a chance," she decided. The order was already chaotic. There was no other way. As they conversed, they arrived at Mok Gyeong-un's lodging. The room was empty. While most shared quarters, Mok Gyeong-un was an exception. Everyone had unanimously refused to share a room with him. Fortunately, a vacant room had been available, allowing him to reside alone. Ugh! A groan escaped Yeom-ga's lips. He stirred, regaining consciousness. Mok Gyeong-un looked down, meeting his eyes. Yeom-ga flinched, a wave of nausea washing over him. The sight of Mok Gyeong-un's face, etched into his memory alongside the brutal beating, sent a chill of primal fear through him. He had truly believed he might die. "Have you come to your senses?" Mok Gyeong-un asked, his tone deceptively mild. "You? What the hell? Tui!" Yeom-ga gasped, pain lancing through his mouth. He spat something out. It was a broken tooth. His entire mouth was numb, filled with the coppery taste of blood, as if he had repeatedly bitten his own tongue. "Does it hurt a lot?" Mok Gyeong-un inquired, his head tilted slightly. "Is that even a question?" Yeom-ga stared at him, an absurd expression of disbelief on his battered face. Mok Gyeong-un scratched his head, feigning innocence. "I hit you a bit too hard, even though I wasn't going to kill you. But it doesn't seem too bad since you've gotten a more manly face." This bastard was toying with him. Even the slightest movement of his facial muscles felt like being burned by fire. He had made his face like this, to the point where it was difficult to even open his eyes, yet his words dripped with provocation. To this seething Yeom-ga, Mok Gyeong-un offered, "How about it? Do you want to join my team?" Yeom-ga gritted his teeth, his voice a raw, choked sound. Uck off. He would rather embrace death than ever align himself with this maniac. Though he knew he was no match, Yeom-ga's pride forbade him from submitting merely because he had lost. Mok Gyeong-un clapped his hands lightly. "An unyielding will that doesn't submit." Yeom-ga's tension, which had coiled tight within him, eased slightly. He had worried this madman might disregard all rules and kill him on a whim, but it seemed he wasn't entirely impulsive. At least, that was fortunate. Let's not associate with him, he decided. This incident had made it terrifyingly clear. This bastard was pure ominousness, a crazy force of nature, just as Yeom-ga had sensed from their first encounter. Nothing good would come from entanglement or provocation. Trembling, Yeom-ga tried to rise, intent on escaping the room as quickly as possible. But then, Mok Gyeong-un placed a finger on Yeom-ga's forehead and pushed lightly. It was not a strong force, yet Yeom-ga, halfway to standing, fell back with a thud. "What are you doing? Who said you could go?" "What?" Yeom-ga's mind spun. Mok Gyeong-un had just spoken as if he was giving up on recruiting him. There was no reason for him to remain. What was happening now? Mok Gyeong-un produced a small wooden puppet from his robe. With one hand he formed a swift hand seal, chanting an incantation. The origin of fate, the cycle of reincarnation, release. What was that? Yeom-ga, unfamiliar with sorcery, could not hide his bewilderment. He tried to draw energy from his donjon. Damn it! He hadn't noticed, but at some point his acupoints had been sealed. No wonder he couldn't put any strength into his body. A sudden eerie sensation, chilling to the bones, seeped into him. It felt like something was infiltrating his very being, a sensation so profoundly unpleasant it was almost unbearable. "Urge, you, what are you doing to me?" Ugh. Yeom-ga's lower back arched, his body twisting like a shrimp. Mok Gyeong-un smiled, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "I'll make good use of that body." What the hell is that? Hook! Black veins bulged across Yeom-ga's neck and face, contorting his features into a hideous mask of agony. But the horrifying transformation was brief. Yeom-ga's convulsing body, his eyes rolling back, suddenly relaxed. He opened his eyes. But it was not Yeom-ga looking out. Someone else had taken residence inside. "How is the body, demon monk?" "It seems usable," the vengeful spirit demon monk replied, now inhabiting Yeom-ga's form. Demon monk, having acquired a young body that had reached the peak realm, wore a satisfied expression. "You should have given it to me in a more intact state." He ran a hand over the damaged face. The broken nose bridge straightened, and the bruised features began to reform, settling into a more recognizable, albeit slightly altered, version of Yeom-ga. "Oh-ho," Mok Gyeong-un observed, intrigued. While severely broken parts couldn't be perfectly repaired, the improvement was significant. The blue spirit clarified. Adjusting the possessed body to a desired state to some extent is not a difficult task. Unlike humans whose souls are bound, we can freely manipulate the bodies we occupy. It seems so. There were clearly many ways to exploit this. A rhythmic thump, thump echoed from the corridor. Mok Gyeong-un turned toward the door. Someone was approaching. The footsteps were light, yet an unnatural quality suggested the person was injured. A gentle knock sounded. "Come in." The door opened, revealing an unexpected figure. It was Mo-ha-rang of the Demon Fire Hall. Though she had received treatment, Mok Gyeong-un assumed she would be recovering, circulating energy, and refining her breath. Why had she come here? At that moment, the green spirit Gu Soha's voice reached Mok Gyeong-un's ears. "Master, master, give me that human's body." He clearly liked Mo-ha-rang's form. The blue spirit's voice, sharp and amused, countered, "You brat! You insisted you were a man, so why are you clamoring for a woman's body?" Ju Soha fell silent, chastened. Mok Gyeong-un, ignoring their banter, offered Mo-ha-rang a light smile. "What brings you here?" Mo-ha-rang's gaze immediately shifted past Mok Gyeong-un to the figure of Yom-ga, who was now possessed by the demon monk. Mok Gyeong-un casually interjected, "Ah, this person has agreed to join our team." The demon monk nodded, playing the role of Yom-ga. Mo-ha-rang turned back to Mok Gyeong-un, her voice low and laced with suspicion. "What did you do?" "What do you mean, what did I do?" "That's not Yom-ga." Mok Gyeong-un's eyebrow twitched upward. "What confidence did this woman possess to make such a claim? What are you talking about?" he asked, feigning ignorance. "That guy with a strong sense of pride wouldn't easily submit to you, and Yom-ga is not the type to go under someone else." Mok Gyeong-un smirked. She was indeed quick-witted, he recalled, capable of deducing his intentions during the flag battle. Didn't she say their eyes met? Mo-ha-rang had claimed to have met the green spirit Gu Soha's gaze. At the time, he dismissed it as coincidence. But if it were true, could this woman also possess the talent of a shaman? Intrigued, Mok Gyeong-un gestured towards Yom-ga. "Then, if this person is not Yom-ga, what is he?" "I don't know." "If you don't know, why did you say that?" "I saw it." "Saw what?" "That ghost-like thing that was wearing chains next to you." Her voice trailed off, as if she herself struggled to believe what she was saying. She desperately wanted confirmation. If her vision was real, then this man was manipulating a ghost, a truly bizarre and unnatural being. "Ghost-like thing, you say. At that time my mind was hazy, but I saw you conversing with it." Even as she spoke, her voice became uncertain, her confidence wavering. Mok Gyeong-un simply stared at her, a faint smile playing on his lips. Mo-ha-rang found herself increasingly disoriented by his inscrutable expression. As someone from the Demon Fire Hall, renowned for its assassins, she had undergone extensive training, including the skill to read people's psychology through their expressions and eyes. "I can't read him." Mok Gyeong-un's face, his eyes, were utterly unreadable beyond the simplest emotions. She bit her lip, frustrated. "Is it a misunderstanding?" She had laid out her suspicions, her strange vision, yet Mok Gyeong-un showed no particular reaction, only an unreadable intrigue. She began to feel foolish, as if she had spoken unnecessarily. Finally, she sighed. "Sorry, I must have been seeing things because of the severe bleeding at that time." She turned, attempting to leave the room. Then a series of rapid syllables, a chant, filled the air behind her. The origin of fate, the cycle of reincarnation, release. Mo-ha-rang froze. Slowly, she turned her head. A shiver coursed through her. Standing next to Mok Gyeong-un, translucent and blurry, was the figure of a girl with half-white hair bound by chains. Ah! What she had seen was real. As she stood in amazed shock, the green spirit Gu Soha stretched out her hand. Chains, shimmering faintly, swiftly wrapped around Mo-ha-rang's body, binding her. Mok Gyeong-un's smile widened, a chilling, malicious triumph in his eyes. "The price for seeing what you wanted is quite steep, but are you okay with that?" Mo-ha-rang of the Demon Fire Hall felt the invisible binds tighten around her. Their form was faint, almost illusory, yet when she strained to move, they bit into her flesh with undeniable reality, constricting her limbs. An instinct to draw on her internal energy surged, but a voice cut through the burgeoning panic. Mok Gyeong-un stood before her, a smile playing on his lips. "The price for seeing what you wanted is quite steep, but are you okay with that?" His smile was a mask of pure malice. No killing intent radiated from him, a chilling absence that intensified the unsettling mirth in his eyes. A memory, long buried, surfaced. She recalled a story whispered in the shadowed halls of her youth. Among countless souls, some were born with a murderous nature. It was a disposition, her father had explained, that found its joy, its very reason for existence, in death and destruction. Such individuals were dangerous, yet if properly tamed, they became the ultimate assassins. They hesitated before no kill, emotional sway held no power over them. The demon fire hall had once been a pinnacle of the assassin world. Moha-rang wondered, with a jolt of unsettling recognition, if Mok Gyeong-un embodied that very nature her father had described. If so, she had ventured into truly perilous territory. Yet her resolve remained unshaken. She met his gaze, her voice steady despite the unseen chains. "I will pay any price." "Any price?" Mok Gyeong-un's smile widened, revealing a predatory glint. "If it means uncovering a secret, I'm prepared for it." Her words carried the weight of conviction. "Prepared? But there's only one life, so can there be any price?" His words were brutal, a stark contrast to his seemingly benign expression. Suddenly, a greedy voice echoed in Moha-rang's mind. "Master, give me this human's body." The green spirit, Ju-soha, stared at her with an insatiable hunger. Moha-rang flinched, turning her gaze to the ethereal figure. Ju-soha tilted her head, a hint of surprise in her next thought. "Human? You can hear my voice too?" Another presence, the blue spirit, let out an intrigued sound. Though it had shown its form, its voice had remained unspoken until now. To be heard meant something significant. "It seems the spiritual eye has opened," the blue spirit's voice resonated, cool and analytical. "Spiritual eye?" Moha-rang murmured, though she wasn't sure if the spirits could hear her. Her gaze remained fixed on Ju-soha. "Yes. Unlike you, who has opened the demon eye to see the inner essence, it seems you have gained the eye to see souls at the crossroads of life and death." The blue spirit's explanation settled over her like a revelation. Moha-rang cautiously spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Are you really a ghost?" Ju-soha's mouth curved into a smirk. "What? Do I look like a mere human to you?" The fear of living beings was sustenance for vengeful spirits, yet Moha-rang radiated something entirely different. A profound longing, a sense of discovery, seemed to emanate from her. It was the emotion of someone who had finally found what they had desperately sought. Mok Gyeong-un observed her reaction, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. "You're showing an interesting reaction. Is seeing the dead your wish or something?" No, that's not it." Her voice trembled with a mixture of awe and determination. She turned back to Mok Gyeong-un, her resolve hardening. "I will pay any price you want, even if it means my life." Mok Gyeong-un's interest seemed to wane. He had witnessed countless deaths, learning to discern between true preparedness and empty boasts. Moha-rang was undeniably the former. She was ready to stake her very existence. "But help me in return," she continued, her voice firm. Help you say?" Mok Gyeong-un muttered, a hint of annoyance in his tone. His finger, unexpectedly quick, pressed against her throat, directly over her Adam's apple. "Why should I do that? It's just a bother." His finger pressed harder, testing her resilience. Even as the pressure increased, her eyes remained unwavering. "That ghost said it wants a body, right? If you grant my request, I'll give you this body as much as you want. It seems like you're trying to make a deal, but even now I can take your body without having to do that." His words were a challenge, a subtle threat. Moha-rang's eyes sharpened. A sudden, potent energy erupted from her, tearing through the spiritual chains with a distinct clang. In both her hands, razor-sharp daggers materialized, shimmering with a honed killing intent far more refined than any she had witnessed from someone like Yom-ga. "Step back," the blue spirit warned Mok Gyeong-un. He obeyed, taking a half-step back, shaking his head slightly. In that instant, multiple trajectories of blinding speed sliced through the air, narrowly missing him. A thin red line appeared on his chin where one had grazed. A drop of blood trickled down. He recognized the method. A thread, impossibly thin yet elastic, stretched from the hilt of a dagger now embedded in the floor, weaving a web to restrict movement. "Don't underestimate me too much." Moharang's voice was chilling, laced with the promise of death. "You had a hidden trick up your sleeve," Mok Gyeong-un smirked, undeterred. The blue spirit's voice resonated in his mind. "I thought I had seen that dagger technique somewhere before, but she has inherited the lineage of the Killing King." "The lineage of the Killing King?" Mok Gyeong-un repeated aloud, voicing the blue spirit's observation. Moharang's eyes widened, her expression a mixture of shock and incomprehension. "What are you?" she demanded. The revelation stunned her. No one outside her sect should know that name. It would be stranger not to think of the Killing King after seeing the linked kill and the flash shadow-flying dagger technique. Mok Gyeong-un unechoed the blue spirit's words directly. Moharang gasped. The linked kill was somewhat known, but the flash shadow-flying dagger technique was a closely guarded secret, taught only to the sect leader of the Demon Fire Hall. It was reserved for the most desperate of assassinations, rarely used, hence its obscurity. But the Killing King? That was oral history, passed down only to leaders and their chosen successors within the Demon Fire Hall. How could he know? In her moment of confusion, Mok Gyeong-un stomped hard on the floor. The floorboard groaned and gave way, lifting the dagger embedded within it. The taut threads snapped, suddenly limp. He launched himself forward, closing the distance in a single breath, his hand seizing her neck. Moharang reacted instinctively. As he charged, she drove her dagger toward his heart, a movement ingrained by thousands of repetitions. The tip barely penetrated. "Fast," Mok Gyeong-un acknowledged. His left hand shot out, seizing her wrist, preventing the blade from burying itself deeper. Her speed was truly exceptional, almost too quick for the eye to follow. She was clearly far more formidable than Yong-ga. A sharp crack echoed as Mok Gyeong-un tightened his grip. Pain ripped through her wrist, threatening to shatter bone, but not a single moan escaped her lips. He chuckled, a low, appreciative sound. "You're strong. When did you put this around my neck?" A fine silver thread, almost invisible, was somehow wrapped around his neck. The dagger that had been embedded in the floor now dangled from the ceiling, connected to the thread. If she pulled, his neck would be severed. "Why aren't you pulling it?" he asked. "You're not squeezing my neck either," she retorted, her voice strained. He held her neck, yes, but no crushing force was applied. That was why she had refrained from pulling the thread. Beyond this point lay mutual destruction, a territory she couldn't enter yet. She still needed something from him. Suddenly, Mok Gyeong-un released her neck. With a feather-light touch, his finger brushed against her silver thread. Instantly, the taut line went limp. Moharang's eyes widened in disbelief. She had been continuously channeling true energy into the thread, yet it had simply dissipated, becoming unresponsive. What sorcery was this? She couldn't comprehend it. "You seem quite useful," Mok Gyeong-un remarked, observing her confusion. "What?" she managed. "I was going to give you to Soha as a body, but it doesn't seem bad to just use you myself." A chilling proposition. "What are you talking about now?" Her mind reeled. "You said you would pay any price for what you want, right?" His words brought her back to their initial agreement. She had indeed said that, but his sudden shift in demeanor made her hesitate. He seized her collar, yanking her forward. "Ah!" A sharp crack reverberated as he forcibly twisted her wrist, the one still holding the dagger, directing the blade toward her own face. She tried to resist, to channel true energy, but the energy flowing to her wrist continuously dispersed, draining her strength. She was helpless. The dagger's tip now hovered mere inches from her eye. Was he truly going to kill her? A cold droplet fell, landing on her lips. It was blood, his blood, clinging to the tip of the blade. As she instinctively tried to close her mouth, Mok Gyeong-un's voice commanded, "Open it." She stared, bewildered. Why? What was he doing? Yet, recognizing that he wasn't trying to end her life immediately, she complied, parting her lips. The drop of blood slipped into her mouth. "Swallow it." She obeyed. The moment the drop of blood entered her throat, a searing heat erupted in her chest. An agonizing, burning pain consumed her, twisting her internal organs. She tore free from Mok Gyeong-un's grasp, collapsing to the floor, desperate to sit cross-legged and circulate her energy. Poison. It had to be poison. The pain was unbearable, a cruel mockery of anything she had ever experienced. As a descendant of the demon fire hall, renowned for its mastery of poisons, she had ingested countless deadly concoctions to build immunity. Yet, Mok Gyeong-un's blood was incomparable. It was a concentrated essence of pure venom, a deadly poison beyond definition. She needed to circulate her energy, quickly, or she would surely die. But just as she began to move, Mok Gyeong-un's foot slammed into her stomach. Ugh! The kick intensified the excruciating pain in her twisting organs. A wave of murderous rage washed over her. You! He pressed his foot down on her shoulder, pinning her to the floor. You said you would pay any price. Then, from this moment on, I'd like you to become a faithful dog. You don't have to go this far, she choked out, desperation creeping into her voice. No, that won't do. I never trust people. Moha. Rang's eyes trembled, reflecting the horrifying realization that she had made a grave error. This man was far more twisted than she could have ever imagined. He wasn't merely a murderous nature. He was the embodiment of evil itself. Meanwhile, in the dimly lit corridors, other trial participants moved with weary determination. They had foregone circulating energy, prioritizing the vital task of gathering teammates, and now their efforts brought them face to face with an astonishing sight. A group emerged from one of the rooms, heading down the corridor. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Was this real? They doubted their own eyes. Two figures, a man and a woman, trailed behind Mok Gyeong-un, flanking him like loyal shadows. They were the heirs of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave and the Demon Fire Hall, the most promising individuals in this brutal Corpse Blood Valley Gateway trial. With the restriction on internal energy finally lifted, everyone had expected them to naturally assume leadership roles, guiding their own teams. Yet here they were, walking in lockstep behind that one enigmatic man. Could it be true? Had these two powerful, leader-level individuals genuinely chosen to follow him? A ripple of profound shock, laced with a dawning sense of dread, spread through the observing boys. The implications were immense. A faint haze clung to Mok Yu-cheon's bare shoulders, testament to exertion. Energy, long suppressed, finally coursed through his exhausted muscles. Fatigue, a stubborn beast, gradually receded. The lifted restriction, the preciousness of internal energy, felt like a revelation. He would live. The contrast between stagnation and flow was staggering. Sleep might alleviate mere tiredness, but only true energy circulation cleansed the accumulated weariness from every fiber of his being. A sharp ache stung his fingertips, then radiated through his hands. He rotated his wrists, clenching and unclenching his fists before finally opening his eyes. His hands were a ruin. Broken nails and bruises marred his fingers, hands, and palms. Not a single spot remained unscathed. A strange thought surfaced. Had he, in his youth, ever worked this hard to fiercely survive? No. This was new. His first real battle, his first kill. Only weeks ago, he'd been a boy, sweating alone in a martial arts hall, honing familiar forms. Now he felt as though he'd plummeted into a chasm, utterly lost. He clenched his wounded hands. Whatever it took, he would survive this place. He trusted only himself. Mok Gyeong-un. He released the name, letting go of false hope. Whatever twisted the other boy, Mok Gyeong-un cared nothing for him. He had no reason to either. Their shared blood meant nothing. This place demanded survival of the fittest. He still couldn't fathom why he, a hostage, was forced to risk his life against these people. Yet, to live, he had to grow stronger. The world truly was vast. With his energy point finally unblocked, he was confident no peer here could stand against him. Still, a subtle surprise stirred within him. He felt the subtle hum of potent energy radiating from various points around him. He had believed that, besides himself, only the most elite disciples from major sects could have reached the peak realm at their age. That had been a dangerous misconception. He rose from the floor. His gaze swept over Ma Sang, who lay on the bed, deep in his own energy circulation. Mok Yu-cheon quietly assumed the basic stance of the Yan Mok sword manner. The human mind was peculiar indeed. Even in this deadly place, where death lurked around every corner, a fierce competitive spirit ignited within him. Perhaps, he mused, he truly was a martial artist to the bone. He needed to become stronger. Training was the only path. A day or two of energy circulation wouldn't bring a significant increase in his internal energy. It was enough to merely recover his body. The rest of his time needed to be spent gaining insight through dedicated practice. He began, slowly unfolding the initial movements of the Yeonmok sword manner. Each motion was deliberate, less than half its original speed. This was a training method known as the flying consecutive kick technique, designed to perfect the precision of each stance. He kept his movements minimal, ensuring they wouldn't disturb Ma Sang's concentration, for they shared this cramped space. Even slow movements created muffled impacts. Mok Yu-cheon, long versed in the flying consecutive kick technique, could exert full power even in this measured flow. He focused intently, his mind absorbed in the rhythm. I thought it might be, but it really was the Yeonmok sword manner. The boy shattered his focus. He startled, turning his head sharply. It was Ma Sang. The boy who had been his companion through the crucible of the second gateway, sharing the brink of life and death. They had clashed briefly at the end, a desperate, raw exchange, but a mutual understanding had formed, and they had agreed to share a room without resentment. Though from the evil faction, Ma Sang had shown a strange loyalty, a decency Mok Yu-cheon found himself drawn to. How do you know that? Mok Yu-cheon asked, his voice guarded. How I know isn't important. Why is someone from the righteous faction in Corpse Blood Valley? Mok Yu-cheon's breath caught. He was speechless. Whatever the reason, his presence here was a stain on the honor of the righteous faction. He could not speak. Ma Sang's voice cut through the silence. Did the Yeonmok sword manner betray the righteous faction? What are you talking about? Mok Yu-cheon's voice erupted, thick with indignation. He might be confused, lost, and terrified, but his pride as a righteous faction member remained. His father, the manor master, had chosen to seal their sect not out of surrender, but to save its people. The Yeonmok sword manor is forever a part of the righteous faction. Ma Sang scoffed, a disbelieving sound that twisted his lips. Don't say such nonsense. A guy who has come all the way to Corpse Blood Valley says he hasn't betrayed the righteous faction. Aren't you here to become a direct disciple of the Heaven and Earth Society's executives in the end? What? Mok Yu-cheon's eyes widened, a tremor running through him. What was this talk? Direct disciple of the Heaven and Earth Society's executives? He couldn't comprehend it. Ma Sang's eyes narrowed, studying his bewildered expression. What? Don't tell me you didn't know? Mok Yu-cheon stood frozen, his mind reeling. He opened his mouth, the words tumbling out. I don't know. I was just dragged here without any notice and didn't know anything. Really? You didn't know anything? Yeah. Ma Sang's suspicious gaze lingered. That's absurd, to enter Corpse Blood Valley without knowing anything. I told you it's true. Mok Yu-cheon insisted, a desperate edge to his voice. Would you believe it if you were me? Ma Sang challenged. What the hell is this place? Mok Yu-cheon burst out, the frustration boiling over. Why is everyone risking their lives and causing this chaos? He had never understood it. The red-belted warriors indifferent to death, the boys risking everything for ordered gateways. Nothing made sense. Why are we risking our lives, you ask? Ma Sang's voice hardened. Corpse Blood Valley is the shortest path to becoming a direct disciple of the Heaven and Earth Society's executives. Why else do you think everyone is risking their lives? If you overcome that risk, you get a chance to be chosen by the 8 executives of the Heaven and Earth Society and become their direct disciple. Even if you don't become one, the more gateways you pass, the more benefits you get to become a team leader or division leader. Do you think opportunities like this come easily? The Heaven and Earth Society. A chance to become a direct disciple of the 8 executives. Mok Yu-cheon's eyes trembled. Now he understood their desperate risks. A disciple of the 8 executives, masters of the martial world-dominating Heaven and Earth Society, meant future control. For them, it was worth everything. But he was different. A bitter taste filled his mouth. He bit his lip until it throbbed. All this time, his desperate struggle to survive had been a struggle to become a direct disciple of the Heaven and Earth Society, the very arch-enemy of the righteous faction. What was he doing? If that happened, the Yeonmok sword manor would not be sending hostages. They would be seen as sending their children to the Heaven and Earth Society's talent center. His very survival became poison to his sect. Mok Yu-cheon was utterly confused. What path remained? Was this a trap by the Heaven and Earth Society? He stood, dumbfounded by the revelation. You, it seems. You really didn't come here of your own will. Ma Sang's tone shifted, becoming unexpectedly serious. Mok Yu-cheon couldn't hide his bewilderment. How did you come here? Ma Sang pressed. His entry here, a trap, made honesty perilous. He thought it dangerous to speak to one now serving their enemy. Ma Sang, sensing his reluctance, poked at the raw wound again. It is betrayal, isn't it? Mok Yu-cheon's face flushed crimson with anger. In any other circumstance, he would have struck the boy, but he barely managed to restrain himself. Then the truth, raw and bitter, escaped his lips. It's not betrayal. I was just taken as a hostage. Hostage? Yeah? Nonsense. Why would they send a hostage to Corpse Blood Valley? Ma Sang scoffed, clearly disbelieving. I don't know either, Mok Yu-cheon cried out, his voice rising in frustration. I thought they would just keep me nicely. Like you said, I didn't know Corpse Blood Valley was a place like this. You didn't know? If I knew, I wouldn't have struggled like this. I would have rather tried to escape somehow. Escape? Can you say that to me? Ma Sang's voice was tinged with something Mok Yu-cheon couldn't decipher. I don't know, Mok Yu-cheon admitted, the despair heavy in his voice. Right now, I don't even know what I should do. The more I put in effort to survive here, the more likely it is that the Yanmok Sword Manor will be branded as having betrayed the righteous faction. If that's the case, for the honor of his family, for the legacy of his sect, suicide might be the only honorable path. Escape from this place was impossible, a truth he had chillingly realized the moment his energy point was unblocked. That monster. The man in the demon mask, a master beyond imagination. He was powerless against such a being. Suicide. The word echoed hollowly in his mind. He had lived only 16 years. The thought of ending his own life, even for his family's sake, was terrifying. As the cold reality of death settled upon him, Mok Yu-cheon involuntarily shivered. Ma Sang, watching him, abruptly rose. He closed the window, checked the corridor, then shut and locked the door. He approached Mok Yu-cheon, his face grave, and whispered, You really didn't betray, did you? I told you I didn't, Mok Yu-cheon whispered back, confused by the sudden change in demeanor. Shh, keep your voice down, Ma Sang urged. Mok Yu-cheon furrowed his brows, utterly bewildered. What was happening? Ma Sang spoke again, his voice barely audible. I'm sorry for not believing you from the beginning. Even though the Yanmok Sword Manor has been a renowned righteous faction for a long time, I couldn't help but consider the possibility. What are you talking about now? Mok Yu-cheon started, but Ma Sang cut him off. Listen quietly. I'm a spy sent by the Righteous Alliance. Mok Yu-cheon's eyes widened, his jaw dropping slightly. A spy sent by the Righteous Alliance? He was utterly stunned. Have you heard of Silent Strides? Ma Sang continued, observing his reaction. Silent Strides, the name registered. He had heard it before. The Righteous Alliance boasted 4 main organizations. Silent Strides was one, a secret dagger operating in shadows. Its existence was meant to remain unknown. A leak had exposed its name. The Righteous Alliance, despite its ideals, vehemently denied Silent Strides' existence. Public opinion remained divided, yet Ma Sang claimed to be one. The Silent Strides might not be real, Mok Yu-cheon began. It's real, Ma Sang stated. The Righteous Alliance, pursuing righteousness, denied it only to hide an intelligence and assassination arm. A slow exhale. So, Silent Strides truly existed. It was astonishing. Really, to think the Silent Strides existed, Mok Yu-cheon stammered, respect involuntarily creeping into his tone. But is it okay to reveal your identity like this? Ma Sang shook his head. Just speak normally. Still, it will only raise suspicion, Ma Sang insisted. I understand, Mok Yu-cheon conceded. But is it okay to reveal your identity to me? Actually, in most cases, we're not allowed to reveal our identities even to people from the same righteous faction. But why? The first reason is to identify allies and enemies. Identify? Since the gateways of Corpse Blood Valley often require us to kill each other, and everyone around us is an enemy, we need to make you aware that we are allies. Mok Yu-cheon understood, though it still felt like a drastic measure for a secret organization. He paused, a new thought emerging. Hadn't Ma Sang just said we? Did that imply there were more Silent Strides agents besides him? As Mok Yu-cheon pondered, Ma Sang continued. The second reason is that, unlike our objective, too many of our infiltrated personnel have died. Infiltrated personnel? Mok Yu-cheon confirmed, the implication clear. There were indeed more. Then there are more besides you. That's right. Originally, about 50 people had infiltrated. 50 people? Mok Yu-cheon's eyes widened further. 50 agents, infiltrating without the Heaven and Earth Society detecting them? It seemed impossible. But 70% of them were filtered out by the Heaven and Earth Society's information network, Ma Sang explained, his voice grim. They were blocked or killed in advance. Ah. The scale of the Heaven and Earth Society's reach was terrifying. The number of people who successfully entered Corpse Blood Valley is 15. 15. Out of roughly 800 challengers, only 15 were Silent Stride spies. Mok Yu-cheon, unfamiliar with intelligence, couldn't gauge the number's significance. Ma Sang's tone, however, suggested even this was a success. But a problem arose, Ma Sang said, his gaze fixed on Mok Yu-cheon. What problem? In the first gateway, all 15 passed, but in the second gateway, 11 died. 11 died. That left only 4. With still more gateways ahead, the mission's probability of success had plummeted to near 0. Mok Yu-cheon finally understood why Ma Sang was revealing such dangerous secrets. Could it be, he began. That's right, Ma Sang confirmed, his eyes locking onto Mok Yu-cheon's. It's to ask for your help, Mok Yu-cheon. Mok Yu-cheon fell silent, utterly speechless. How was he supposed to react? Who could have ever imagined a situation where a member of the Righteous Alliance's shadowy Silent Strides would reveal his true identity and openly ask for his help? I think it's hard for you to accept, Ma Sang said, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. But there was no other way. Mok Yu-cheon remained silent, his mind reeling. Past failed infiltrations taught them. They sent personnel capable of fighting without internal energy using external techniques. But this situation they hadn't foreseen. That monster. The wolf creature with pig-like cries. Within the shadowy recesses of the Righteous Alliance, an organization known only as Silent Strides operated, its existence whispered among a select few. It was the clandestine arm of righteousness, tasked with deeds that could never bear the light of day. They were the Alliance's dark reflection, handling the grim necessities that preserved order from the unseen. Even within this secretive group, a unit stood apart, an anomaly known as the Fourth Group. They were not the auditors, nor the intelligence gatherers, nor the assassins. They were simply called monsters by their peers, a title acknowledging their fearsome strength and their fundamental difference from ordinary humans. Nun Hwa-young, the vice commander of the Fourth Group's 13th Squad, embodied this distinction. She was one of 3 such agents dispatched for a crucial mission in Corpse Blood Valley, a task that had repeatedly eluded the Second Group's intelligence efforts. Their presence was a testament to the Fourth Group's unique capabilities, a direct order to achieve results where others had failed. Her fingers snapped, a playful gesture aimed at Mok Gyeong-un. A seductive smile played on her lips. "Let's have a conversation with our bodies," she purred, her voice a silken invitation. Mok Gyeong-un. The name tasted bitter on her tongue. 7 of her dispatched agents had perished because of him. The command was unequivocal: sever his tendons, destroy his donjon. It was a task she excelled at, a specialty honed over countless assignments. Assassinating prominent figures was her art. Men, especially, were delightfully simple. A touch of seduction, a vulnerable embrace, and then the final, exquisite release of their life. She studied him now, her gaze appreciative. He was handsome, far more striking than she had anticipated from mere reports. A charming smile, a hint of decadence in his eyes, a face crafted to ensnare women. A pity, truly. To cripple such a specimen after only a single, fleeting pleasure seemed a waste. But duty and the mission's paramount importance left no room for sentiment. Not only had he cost lives, but he remained a significant disruption to their future operations. A soft thud echoed as Mok Gyeong-un closed the door, sealing them within the chamber. He moved slowly, deliberately. "What kind of conversation is that?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. "Why ask when you know?" she countered, her tone coquettish, a well-practiced art. She settled onto the bed, crossing her legs slightly, a calculated display of curves. He chuckled, approaching with an easy gait. "I really don't know. Are you feigning naivety?" she pressed, a hint of impatience in her voice, though her expression remained alluring. "Or are you trying to wear me out?" "Who knows?" he replied, stopping 2 paces from her, directly in front of the bed. A confident smile touched Nunghua-young's lips. She stretched one leg, its tip casually reaching for his crotch, a subtle provocation. What man could resist such an invitation? She expected him to succumb, as all others had. But then, an unexpected move. Mok Gyeong-un caught the tip of her foot. He knelt, his touch light, as he gently stroked her ankle. A flicker of interest ignited in Nunghua-young's eyes. He wasn't as naive as she had initially thought. Perhaps he wasn't a virgin, despite his youth. That was a relief. The game was far more enjoyable when the prey understood the rules, when there was a measure of pleasure to be extracted before the kill. She let out a deliberate, rough exhalation. Her body hardly stirred from a mere ankle stroke, but the sound was designed to incite. His hand moved, gliding from her ankle, tracing a path up her shin, past her knee, and settling on her thigh. As his touch reached her upper leg, her eyes took on a sensual glaze. This would be properly enjoyable, after all. He was, in a way, receiving a reward before his unfortunate end. "You undress, too," she murmured, her voice husky with invitation. Mok Gyeong-un offered a light smile. Instead of continuing his caress, he linked his index and middle fingers, then began to waltz them up her thigh. Nunghua-yang's face flushed. This boy, young as he was, possessed an unexpected understanding of women. Most men, once given the green light, simply rushed in, abandoning all pretense of foreplay. His methodical approach, however, was a welcome surprise, especially for her jaded senses. "You look delicious," Mok Gyeong-un said, his voice quiet. A soft moan escaped her lips. "Ha! I look delicious? Then hurry and devour me. You don't have to hold back." She expected this to ignite a primal madness within him. Yet, as his linked fingers continued their slow ascent, he spoke again. "I need to savor the taste slowly. Beautiful things should be made to heat up slowly to truly enjoy the flavor." "Ah, you. I like you," she breathed, genuinely intrigued. "I feel the same," he responded, his voice almost a whisper. "Thinking about the screams that will come out of your heated mouth already makes me tingle." His words, combined with the lingering touch, sent a genuine thrill through Nunghua-young. He truly knew how to excite a woman, to manipulate her imagination with such evocative phrases. It had been a long time since she'd felt this particular stir. His hand, after a long journey, finally reached her smooth stomach. Nunghua-young smacked her lips, a hint of playful disappointment. Was he teasing her, prolonging the anticipation? He was, indeed, an expert. She had been curious about the lunatic she was supposed to subdue, and now she found him to be surprisingly delicate, possessing a deep understanding of female pleasure. Mok Gyeong-un's hand, which had been gently caressing her abdomen, drifted upwards, moving towards her voluptuous breasts. A heavy breath escaped her. He smiled. "It's heating up nicely and softly. I wonder what expression you will make when I peel off the shell of your entire body." "I'm already completely naked," she replied, a faint amusement in her voice. "What more is there to undress here?" "Right here," he said, and with a soft tug he pulled at her skin. Nunghua-yang's brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. What nonsense was he spouting? Things were going so well, and he resorted to such an odd attempt at arousal? She maintained her composure, forcing a light laugh. "You're good at joking, too." "Ho ho ho. It's not a joke." "What?" The absurd question momentarily disarmed her. Mok Gyeong-un's smile widened, stretching so far his lips seemed to touch his ears. "From the moment I first saw you, I wanted to peel off your entire skin and see what's inside." "Are you saying that to get me excited?" she challenged, a hint of unease beginning to prickle her skin. "Aren't you excited?" he countered, his eyes holding an unsettling gleam. "Are you kidding me? I once peeled off the entire skin of a guy who kept his mouth shut and made him see his own insides. He screamed so much that he fainted." The sight of blood vessels and real muscles intertwined was really nice to see. A shiver of genuine dread coursed through Nunghua Yang. She had dismissed his earlier words as an unconventional attempt at foreplay, but the sheer malice in his smile, the disturbing sincerity in his gaze, spoke of a different truth. He truly meant it. He wanted to flay her, to witness her suffering. A bone-deep chill settled in her spine. She, the queen spider, who reveled in the agony of her victims, who found excitement in their dying throes, was now confronting a presence far darker than her own. She had always prided herself on her warped tastes, her inability to feel pain transforming killing into a perverse pleasure. But this man, Mok Gyeong-un, exceeded her wildest imaginings. She had thought herself insane. This man was beyond insanity. He was a demon, a creature of pure murderous intent, a beautiful woman, naked and offering herself, and his only desire was to peel her skin and witness her torment. Her body trembled uncontrollably. The initial plan, to watch him wallow in blissful ignorance before shattering his happiness, dissolved. Now, she wanted to see this lunatic beg for his life. She forced a faint smile. "I need to hear your screams, too." With a swift, decisive motion, she wrapped her legs around Mok Gyeong-un's arm, tightening them like a snake. Her knees pressed into his neck and back, meticulously targeting pressure points designed to snap his elbow if he dared resist. "It's best if you stay still," she warned, her voice laced with venom. "If you resist recklessly, your elbow bone will pop out." A sickening crack echoed in the room. What was that? Her eyes widened in disbelief. Mok Gyeong-un, with her legs tightly clamped around him, had lifted his entire body. She, a master of the bone-breaking technique capable of exerting nearly 6-star power at her peak realm, was being forcibly endured by this boy. He was not resisting. He was simply enduring her. A surge of fury ignited within her. She poured more energy into her legs, determined to shatter his elbow. But his arm remained rigid, unyielding. Then he made an utterly unexpected move. Holding her in his embrace, he suddenly twisted his neck. A wet, tearing sound filled the air. He bit into her thigh muscle, the one opposite the knee she was tightening. Though she possessed no sensation of pain, the distinct feeling of teeth sinking into flesh was undeniable. The location of his bite was critical, dangerous. If the muscle was severed, she might never walk again. She released her grip, her legs kicking out instinctively, striking Mok Gyeong-un's head. His body recoiled, pushing him back. She crumpled to the floor, panting, her gaze fixed on the back of her knee. It hung at an unnatural angle. The muscle was torn. "You son of a—" The words caught in her throat. He was chewing. Mok Gyeong-un, blood smeared around his lips, was chewing on the piece of her thigh muscle he had torn off. He chewed deliberately, then swallowed. He wiped the blood from his lips with his tongue, a slow, deliberate lick. The taste of blood is okay, but it's a bit tough. This crazy Nunghua Yang was momentarily speechless. She had always embraced her own madness, her insatiable appetite for perverse pleasure. But this transcended even her twisted understanding. This wasn't mere insanity. This was the raw, unadulterated essence of a demon, a murderous nature so profound it defied human comprehension. Overwhelming fear seized her. She instinctively recoiled, taking a step back. No, tie her up." His voice was too quick, the words barely out before something wrapped around her entire body, binding her, preventing any movement. What is this?" she gasped, struggling against the unseen restraint. She channeled her inner energy, attempting to shatter the bindings, to break free. But Mok Gyeong-un merely raised a hand, a shushing gesture, though no words escaped his lips. Then her own mouth clamped shut. She couldn't scream. She couldn't even speak. Her face drained of all color, a profound horror seizing her. He approached, his smile reaching his ears. "You said you can't feel pain? That's great. I have a mirror here, too." "I was wondering what reaction you would show if you saw your own shell being peeled off one by one." His expression was one of pure, unadulterated thrill. He was serious. Deadly serious. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of her bound form. She hyperventilated, ragged breaths tearing through her throat. Foam appeared at the corners of her mouth, and her eyes rolled back into her head. "Oh?" Mok Gyeong-un's expression shifted, a flicker of disappointment crossing his face. The pungent odor of human fear, a stark blend of sweat and something more acrid, hung heavy in the air. Nung Hua-yang lay crumpled on the floor, her eyes rolled back, a thin line of spittle frothing at her lips. A dark stain spread beneath her, a stark testament to the complete surrender of her body. Mok Gyeong-un, observing her, clicked his tongue in a soundless expression of disappointment. He had hoped for more. It seems pain tolerance and fear are separate matters. He smacked his lips, a gesture that seemed almost a lament for lost opportunity. A voice, ethereal yet distinct, echoed in his mind. "I think I know your true calling, you fiend. Pardon? You'd make a perfect torturer. Terrorizing people like that, no one could possibly withstand it. No, they'd probably confess everything before you even start torturing them." Mok Gyeong-un raised an eyebrow slightly. "You think so? You're exceptionally skilled at instilling fear. You really have a knack for this sort of thing." He shrugged, a casual movement that belied the chilling intensity of his gaze. "I wasn't just trying to scare her, though." A silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken implications. The spirit, Chong Ri-yong, recoiled mentally. Had he genuinely intended to flay her alive, right before her eyes? A profound depravity seemed to reside within him, a twisted aesthetic taste she struggled to comprehend. Chong Ri-yong clicked her tongue, a sound of utter incredulity. "You're utterly out of your mind," Mok Gyeong-un chuckled, a low, dry sound. "I'm kidding, just kidding." As if, no, really, no matter how much I enjoy seeing blood, I wouldn't do something so inefficient. He spoke with a disarming frankness. "Inefficient? Yes. You could call it a waste of time. It takes far too long. Plus, if she dies while I'm skinning her, it takes the fun out of it." Another weighty silence followed, punctuated only by the faint trickle from the unconscious woman. Chung Ryong felt a prickle of unease. He would do it if given the chance. He was truly suspicious. This boy, Mok Gyeong-un, seemed to perceive humans as no different from animals, insects, or even inanimate objects. His concept of death was fundamentally different from the world's common understanding. As Chung Ryong grappled with this disturbing realization, Mok Gyeong-un spoke again. "But I did learn one thing. And what's that? It seems even without pain, you can't do anything about fear." The woman had boasted of her immunity to pain. He had tested the limits of her courage, curious if a body free from suffering could also be free from terror. It would have been fascinating, a truly unique phenomenon. His hopes were dashed. Nyung Hua-yang had succumbed to terror, her carefully cultivated resilience shattered. Chung Ryong offered a wisdom born of ages. For a living being, emotions are a realm that cannot be fully controlled, no matter how much one trains. Perhaps you're right. He couldn't deny it. It wasn't just fear. The simmering anger within him, kindled by his grandfather's death, had not faded with time. It had grown, an internal lava flow threatening to erupt. He couldn't predict the chaos it might unleash. Anyway, I wonder why this woman came to my room to do this. What? You mean why she tried to mate with you, you mortal? Mok Gyeong-un tilted his head, a wry amusement in his eyes. What a blunt and amusing way to put it. Why are you acting innocent all of a sudden? He merely shrugged, a gesture of feigned ignorance. Chung Ryong's tone shifted to one of dry mockery. Anyway, whether it was mating or whatever else, if it was a honey trap, it was truly a wasted effort. Mok Gyeong-un, as she had observed him, was not one to fall for such transparent ploys. He never took anything at face value. Even genuine kindness, devoid of ulterior motives, stirred deep suspicion within him. He was, in a sense, remarkably difficult to deceive. In any case, I'll have to wake her up and ask why she did this. I don't think she would have done something like this for no reason. I agree with that. From the moment the woman had approached him, knowing his name, her purpose was clear. It was certainly not physical intimacy. With a sudden, decisive motion, Mok Gyeong-un pressed down hard on the center of her chest with his foot. Now, time to wake up. A choked gasp, then a ragged cough tore from Nung Hua-young's throat. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused for a moment, before locking onto Mok Gyeong-un's face. The recognition sparked immediate terror, and she flinched, hastily averting her gaze. The fear, once unleashed, refused to dissipate. It clung to her, a cold, suffocating blanket. Her hands flew to her skin, frantically patting her arms, her face, her torso. A profound wave of relief washed over her. Whew! If she had woken to find her skin peeled, it would have been truly unbearable. Fortunately, for now, she was intact. Mok Gyeong-un smiled down at her, a chillingly pleasant expression. "You seem relieved?" A tremor ran through her body. "You need to be awake for me to see your expression when I peel off your skin. This madman." His words ignited a fresh wave of goosebumps across her skin. She had believed that after losing the ability to feel pain, fear would also vanish. But this man was utterly beyond any normal human experience. His mind operated on a completely different plane. Her heart began to pound, a frantic drumbeat in her chest. Mok Gyeong-un chuckled softly. "It would be troublesome if you fainted again." The words triggered an involuntary, desperate plea from her lips. Please, huh?" What was she saying? Had she truly just begged him? All the rigorous training she had endured to become a Silent Strides agent flashed through her mind. The fundamental directive: never divulge information if captured, even under the most brutal torture. In the worst case, take one's own life. She bit down hard on her lip, tasting blood. It was humiliating. She had embraced the void left by her pain immunity, filling it with the perverse thrill of others' suffering and death. She had thought herself fearless, immune to both pain and mortality. But it was a lie. The emotion called fear had merely been lurking in a forgotten corner of her heart. In the end, I'm no different. She, too, was just an ordinary human, nothing special. A blank expression settled on her face. She looked at Mok Gyeong-un, a new resolve hardening her features. Just kill me. That might be difficult. The constraint for this checkpoint is no killing. Instead, I can make one promise. Promise? If you answer my questions, I'll skip this enjoyable process and just let you go. His tone implied a great favor, a magnanimous offer. For a fleeting moment, it seemed tempting. However, Nung Hua-yang remained silent. Seeing her defiance, Mok Gyeong-un grinned. "The question is simple. Did you come here of your own accord, or did someone send you?" Dark. Suddenly at a loss for words, I see. "Ark." She had barely overcome her fear and composed herself. How could she possibly open her mouth? A Silent Strides agent did not divulge information, even at the cost of her life. With a defiant look in her eyes, she spoke, her voice laced with a grim resolve. "I'll be waiting in hell." She opened her mouth, her tongue protruding, ready to bite down. A sudden, sharp clang echoed. "Irk!" Something incredibly solid coiled between her teeth, preventing her desperate attempt at self-destruction. What? She saw nothing, yet the unseen force held her tongue immobile. What could it be? Perplexed, a shiver of dread ran down her spine. Mok Gyeong-un spoke, his words unfathomable to her. "Soha, you said you wanted a body, right?" Psst. Was there someone else in the room? She had sensed no other presence. A profound chill permeated the air. Something cold and utterly eerie seemed to caress her hair, a sensation that turned her stomach. Her eyes widened, disbelief warring with horror. A blurry figure flickered into view, upside down before her. It was a girl with graying hair, but her pupils were stark white, unnerving and alien. As the upside-down girl drifted closer, she radiated an aura profoundly inhuman. "Ghost, move!" Nung Hua-yang struggled, twisting her body, desperate to sit up. But Mok Gyeong-un's foot still pinned her down, and an invisible force bound her entire body, rendering her completely helpless. "Don't come! Don't come!" Her fear crescendoed, blood vessels bursting, staining the whites of her eyes crimson. A cold, slithering sensation enveloped her. For the first time in her life, she experienced something possessing her body. It was a sensation entirely beyond the five senses, a profound violation. Irk. Black, bulging veins erupted across her skin as she convulsed violently, her body writhing in silent agony. Two men moved with urgent purpose through the hushed corridor. Mok Yu-cheon and Ma Sang, the emissary of the Righteous Alliance's Silent Strides, their destination clear, Mok Gyeong-un's room. "Damn it. We better not be late," Ma Sang muttered, irritation lacing his tone. Mok Yu-cheon offered no reply. He had finally confessed to Ma Sung, revealing the uncomfortable truth. Mok Gyeong-un was his half-brother. He had resisted the admission, wishing to bury that inconvenient fact forever. Yet he couldn't abandon the young man, his energy channels and danjon reportedly destroyed, to die helplessly. He had prostrated himself in apology to Ma Sung, laying bare the truth. At first, Ma Sang's rage had been boundless. That lunatic is the third son of Yon Mok Sword Manor? The revelation was absurd beyond comprehension. But Mok Yu-cheon's persistent apologies eventually quelled the raw fury, leaving behind a simmering resentment. Who could have imagined that the one responsible for the deaths of so many Silent Strides agents was the scion of a renowned righteous faction? Ma Sang spoke in a hushed, strained voice. Mok Yu-cheon, can you keep your word? I'll try my best. Trying your best isn't enough. If the situation weren't like this, I would have classified him as an obstacle to the mission and eliminated him, regardless of your request. His words held an undeniable truth. Righteous faction or not, the damage inflicted by Mok Gyeong-un was immense. He was a dangerous variable. For the sake of the future, eliminating him seemed the logical course. However, with only 4 Silent Strides agents remaining, the mission's success probability had plummeted. You must persuade Mok Gyeong-un, for the sake of ensuring the deaths of those who fell by his hands were not in vain. I understand, Mok Yu-cheon reaffirmed, his voice firm despite his internal turmoil. The acting emissary of the Silent Strides, Ma Sang, desired only one thing, not a heartfelt apology from Mok Gyeong-un, but for the brothers to join them, even temporarily, and fulfill the mission. Can I persuade him? To be honest, Mok Yu-cheon's confidence was thin, verging on non-existent, yet he had to try. Even if Mok Gyeong-un had changed drastically, his ability to make rational judgments surely remained intact. If not, he wouldn't have survived this long. Even if he's changed, he's still from a righteous faction. He clung to this belief, convinced that the man, deep down, hadn't forgotten his roots. Mok Yu-cheon decided he would emphasize this point, hoping to sway him. Perhaps this was an opportunity. If they aided the Righteous Alliance's Silent Strides emissaries and played a crucial role in the downfall of the Heaven and Earth Society, they might finally shed the disgrace of their expulsion from the Yon Mok Sword Manor. Yes, he'll want that too. As Mok Yu-cheon mentally rehearsed his approach, they arrived before Mok Gyeong-un's room. A sudden sense of unease settled upon them. No presence could be felt from within the room. Mok Yu-cheon and Ma Sung exchanged bewildered glances. Mok Yu-cheon voiced his confusion. Didn't you say one of the agents had already made a move? I did. That's why we're rushing here. They had hurried, their steps quick but deliberately quiet, avoiding the telltale lightness techniques that would draw unwanted attention. The perplexed men decided to open the door. Huh? As expected, the room was empty. The bed, however, was broken, scattered debris marking a clear struggle. It was evident at a glance that something significant had transpired. Mok Yu-cheon's expression darkened. Could we be too late? Ma Sung inspected the disordered room, his brow furrowed. We don't know for certain yet. If that woman completed her mission, Mok Gyeong-un should be lying on the bed, half crippled. But neither of them is here. Perhaps she took him to the captain. Captain! Yes. Among the surviving emissaries of the Silent Strides, a captain commanded them. It was he who had ordered the attempt on Mok Gyeong-un. Ma Sang's tone softened, tinged with a slight apology. We still don't know, so just bear with it for a bit. Let's go see the captain. All right. They closed the door, a sense of foreboding lingering, and headed downstairs. The captain of the Silent Strides emissaries was said to be staying in the room at the far right end of the 2nd floor. They were currently on the 4th floor. As they descended, a murmur of voices drifted up from below, growing louder with each step. Boys had gathered in the center of a lower floor, a palpable commotion in the air. Ma Sang hesitated, a look of disconcertion on his face. What's wrong? Mok Yu-cheon asked. Damn it all, Ma Sang cursed under his breath. What? Red-belted warriors, their uniforms crisp, were dragging out a boy, blood soaking his clothes. And next to him, another boy, his leg severed, was held firmly by the arms. Ma Sung stood frozen, a profound sense of loss settling over him. Mok Yu-cheon whispered, What the hell is going on? Ma Sang gritted his teeth, whispering back with a strangled urgency. They're both our agents. Those two, clearly suffering, were Silent Stride's agents. What could possibly explain this? As they grappled with the shocking sight, a booming laugh echoed through the hall. Ha ha ha, finding the emissaries is all thanks to you. The red-belted warriors who had captured the agents laughed heartily, patting someone's back, showering them with praise. It was none other than Mok Gyeong-un. Mok Yu-cheon's face instantly stiffened, the hopes for redemption he had harbored shattering into jagged fragments. The information extracted from Gyu Soha's memories, glimpses into the mind of the woman who had briefly inhabited Nunghua Yang's body, stirred a peculiar curiosity within Mok Gyeong-un. His disinterest in the petty squabbles of the martial world remained firm, yet what Soha had unveiled allowed him to piece together the fractured relationship between the esteemed Righteous Alliance and the sprawling Heaven and Earth Society. Adversaries. That was the stark, undeniable truth. What truly intrigued him was the core of their antagonism. Their conflict wasn't born from simple grudges or territorial disputes, but from a clash of deeply held beliefs, of divergent philosophies. People risked their lives, endured unimaginable suffering, all for abstract ideals. Justice, it's quite inefficient, he mused aloud, the word tasting strange on his tongue. Inefficient. Yes, that's true too. But there's nothing more fearsome than values and beliefs, Chong Ryong's ethereal voice echoed in his mind, tinged with an ancient weariness. Why is that? Nothing is more draining than believing oneself to be absolutely right, even more so than resentment. A quiet hum of agreement resonated within Mok Gyeong-un. He hadn't encountered many people in his isolated life, yet the few he had met who considered themselves unconditionally righteous were indeed the most tiresome. They saw the world in stark, unyielding terms, everything outside their narrow self-perception cast as inherently wrong. Perhaps that was why he found such individuals profoundly irritating. Just hearing the names of the groups is exhausting, he remarked, a faint curl on his lips. Righteous Alliance. Do they call themselves that because they consider themselves just? That's how those types are, Chong Ryong confirmed, her tone dry. But the Righteous Alliance calls the Heaven and Earth Society evil or demonic. Nonsense. Chong Ryong's voice suddenly rose, a sharpness he hadn't heard before. They have a dichotomous way of thinking. They're stubborn fools who think if they're white, everything else must be black. A flicker of understanding crossed Mok Gyeong-un's features. Is that so? Then I suppose the Heaven and Earth Society isn't the evil faction they make it out to be. The Heaven and Earth Society we created was not such a simple organization, she declared, a note of fierce pride in her voice. He narrowed his eyes imperceptibly. We created? Had she, this ancient spirit, truly played a part in shaping such a massive organization? The thought lingered, unspoken. Instead, he probed a different facet of her statement. It wasn't a simple organization. Yes, the notions of demonic cult or evil ways are repulsive labels imposed by those hypocrites. But the Heaven and Earth Society was established to reject that and create a true martial world. A true martial world? Since when did the righteous way become justice and everything else the root of evil in the martial world? I wouldn't know that either, he admitted honestly, a faint shrug. Ah, of course. Chong Ryong clicked her tongue, a sound of gentle exasperation. Mok Gyeong-un's life had always been far removed from the tangled roots of the martial world. What the Heaven and Earth Society pursued was for the martial world to return to its most primitive form. Primitive? What's that? The weak are meat, the strong eat, survival of the fittest, the strong dominate. The essence of martial arts is ultimately to prove one's own strength. Her voice gained a fervent edge. In the beginning, it was called the martial forest because it was entangled in pursuit of pure strength. But the current martial world is merely a war of rotten values. A heavy silence settled. Where is there black and white in the world? She continued, her voice laced with profound resentment. Even white paper turns black when ink is poured, and a butcher becomes a Buddha when he lays down his knife. If you want to discuss the world in terms of color, shouldn't it be gray? Her anger, he realized, was not the fleeting, self-centered kind he often felt, but a deep, world-weary bitterness. It was directed at the very fabric of existence. Then are you saying the Heaven and Earth Society is gray? He ventured, a curious inflection in his voice. Silence. A profound, immediate silence from Chong Ryong. The lack of a response spoke volumes. He understood then. The current iteration of the Heaven and Earth Society was likely not the grays she envisioned. It was probably why she carried such a heavy disillusionment. He decided to shift the subject. Well, putting that aside, thanks to this, I learned some good information. The emissaries of the Righteous Alliance. When one possessed another, some memories could be gleaned, not all, but enough to be useful. When an organization's scale grows to thousands or tens of thousands, naturally gaps form and sending spies to each other becomes frequent. It's only natural, nothing to be surprised about. But they're more foolish than I thought, Chong Ryong observed, her voice returning to its usual cool assessment. What do you mean? I'm talking about these silent strides spies. Them? Yes. For spies, secrecy for intelligence is their lifeblood. But for the dispatched spies to share this much information about each other, tisk. Mok Gyeong-un nodded, a silent agreement. He had no prior experience with spies, yet even to him, sharing such sensitive information among themselves seemed like a strategic blunder. One slip, one capture, and the entire network could unravel. But their foolishness was not his primary concern. His situation had changed. He had inadvertently drawn the ire of these silent strides agents. So what will you do? Chong Ryong prompted. Who knows? It seems too late to just leave them be. He had indeed made quite an enemy. Their numbers had dwindled because of him, their mission success drastically compromised. It may be revenge for losing comrades, but they likely think killing you will make it easier to pass future checkpoints, she surmised. From the latter perspective, it's not a wrong choice. It's not the right choice either. True. If they succeeded, it was a different story, but failure would demand a corresponding price. That was the essence of their current predicament. Ju Soha, still inhabiting Neung Hua-yang's body, spoke up, her voice eager. Master. Shall I go and deal with them one by one? With the spy's memories, she could easily lull them into a false sense of security, then strike, crippling their donjon as they had tried to do to him. Mok Gyeong-un, however, shook his head. What? Don't tell me you're going to let them off, Chong Ryong exclaimed, surprised. No, it seems there's no need to go through that trouble. No need? Then what will you do? This might be better. The corner of Mok Gyeong-un's mouth curled into an eerie, calculating smile. A few hours later, a robust, red-belted warrior clapped Mok Gyeong-un heartily on the back, a boisterous laugh echoing in the hall. Ha 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 ha! To think you found the spies, it's all thanks to you. Mok Gyeong-un's chosen solution for the Silent Strides agents was disarmingly simple. There was no need for personal confrontation. Instead, he had merely informed the red-belted warriors of the identities of the spies hidden among them. It was a strategy of cunning efficiency, a true killing of two birds with one stone. He had purged a threat without shedding a drop of his own blood, and simultaneously earned significant merit with the Heaven and Earth Society by revealing the traitors. Of course, the only truly unfortunate party was Green Spirit Gu Soha, who had to betray the very body she had just acquired, exposing its identity as a spy, before discarding it once more. Ah! That guy over there is also from the Silent Strides like me. Gui Soha, playing her part impeccably, pointed a trembling finger towards the stairs leading to the upper floor. A young boy standing there, caught in the sudden spotlight, looked utterly flustered, his composure shattering. Mok Gyeong-un recognized him instantly. It was the boy who had passed the second checkpoint in his own group, the one who had tried to finish off Mo Harang after her injury from Mok Yu-cheon. Ma Sang, he recalled. With a sudden, desperate movement, Ma Sang sprang up the stairs. Get him! A red-belted warrior roared. A chorus of shouts erupted as the Heaven and Earth Society members swarmed, chasing after the fleeing spy. According to the memories from Neung Hua-yang, Ma Sang was the last of the 4 spies who had managed to survive the earlier encounters. What truly terrible luck for him, Mok Gyeong-un reflected, to walk directly into the jaws of exposure. Yet his gaze drifted slightly. He saw Mok Yu-cheon, his face contorted in a silent, murderous glare directed squarely at him. The resentment in those eyes was palpable, consuming. Mok Gyeong-un considered it. Mok Yu-cheon had, after all, come down the stairs with Ma Sung. His expression suggested he knew something, perhaps even shared a connection with the spies. Such a simple, honest display of emotion. Mok Gyeong-un's lips twitched, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk. Simple-minded. Was it merely youth? A fleeting thought crossed his mind. Should he seize this moment, brand Mok Yu-cheon as a spy too, and eradicate this nuisance? He dismissed the idea in an instant. Not yet. Despite the facade, within the Heaven and Earth Society, they were currently linked, both purportedly from Yeonmok Sword Manor. Any premature move, any undue suspicion cast upon their fabricated connection might jeopardize his assimilation into the Heaven and Earth Society's ranks. There would be ample time, plenty of opportunities, to deal with Mok Yu-cheon later. He offered Mok Yu-cheon a small, almost imperceptible wave, a subtle, infuriating smile. It seemed to fuel Mok Yu-cheon's rage further. His face flushed a deeper red as he stomped up the stairs, disappearing from view. Just then, a figure approached him. Mok Gyeong-un. Ah, yes, he responded, turning. It was a middle-aged man, older than the other red-belted warriors, clearly a senior figure. The senior warrior gestured towards the lower floor. The master is summoning you. The master? He meant the one with the demon mask. Mok Gyeong-un, his mind already churning with possibilities, followed the senior warrior downstairs. The first floor, usually reserved for the red-belted warriors overseeing the checkpoints, held a central office. Within this office, the Corpse Blood Valley Master made his temporary residence. A soft knock echoed against the sturdy door. "I've brought him, my lord," the senior warrior announced from outside. Inside, a figure sat gazing into a bronze mirror. "Have him wait a moment," a voice commanded, low and resonant. The figure pushed the mirror aside, and for a fleeting instant, a face marred by burn scars flashed into view. Then, with practiced ease, the person reached for a mask resting on the desk, a fearsome demon mask, and settled it into place. "Send him in." The door creaked open, revealing a handsome young boy. Mok Gyeong-un unentered, bowing lightly in greeting. The demon mask waved a hand, indicating a guest chair. "Sit." "Yes." Mok Gyeong-un moved gracefully, taking the offered seat. The demon mask rose from his own office chair and took the seat directly opposite him. An intense stare bored into Mok Gyeong-un from behind the mask's eye-holes. Mok Gyeong-un met the gaze without flinching, his own eyes steady and unyielding. "Look at this guy," the demon mask thought, a flicker of interest igniting in the depths of his masked eyes. Such boldness, such composure. Since assuming his role as master of the Corpse Blood Valley, he had encountered many talents, many who navigated the checkpoints with surprising cunning. But this boy was different. There was something about him, a nascent strength, a quiet confidence that hinted at a potential far exceeding anyone he had ever seen. They said a well-grown tree could be judged by its leaves, and this one promised to soar. Yet, one crucial point remained unclear. Mok Gyeong-un. "Yes, you're from the righteous faction's Yeonmok Sword Manor, right?" "Yes. You don't have to give short answers now." The demon mask's tone was level, without malice. I understand," Mok Gyeong-un conceded. "From what I've heard, you and that fellow named Mok Yu-cheon were brought here as hostages in exchange for leaving the Yeonmok Sword Manor alone as an expelled disciple. Is that correct?" Mok Gyeong-un felt a peculiar sensation. The master did not know the true reason for his presence here, the secret manual, the Heaven and Earth Society's treasure. He had assumed that knowledge would be paramount. He didn't feel compelled to correct the misconception. He simply nodded. "That's right." The demon mask's eyes narrowed, barely visible through the mask's slits. His voice dropped, heavy with suspicion. "But it's strange." A metallic whisper, almost imperceptible. "Shing!" Before Mok Gyeong-un could even fully register the sound, a sword tip rested against his neck. His eyes sharpened, the surprise fleeting but potent. He had heard the drawing, seen the subtle shift of muscle, yet the blade had materialized at his throat without a blink. Fast, impossibly fast. The realization struck him with quiet force. Chung Ryong had been right. His current skills were indeed inadequate for this world. He couldn't even gauge the true depth of this man's power. As he processed the speed, the demon mask continued, his voice dangerously soft. Even though you were forcibly brought here against your will, why did you reveal the Righteous Alliance's spies? This was the core of his doubt. He could not reconcile Mok Gyeong-un's actions with his supposed plight. I had hoped to be rewarded for informing you of the spies, so this is unexpected. Mok Gyeong-un's voice remained calm, devoid of fear. Before you speak of rewards, you must first convince me. Is that so? The demon mask's visible eyebrow arched, the sword tip, sharp and cold, pressed against his neck. A mere twitch of the wrist, and it would pierce flesh. He was under intense suspicion, yet displayed no sign of wavering. Do you realize that you're in a position to be suspected? The demon mask asked, a note of impressed curiosity in his voice. How could I not when there's a sword at my neck? Then are you gutsy? Or do you have something that can dispel suspicion in an instant? Let's say it's the latter. A quiet click of the demon mask's tongue. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a low, chilling warning. Let me warn you in advance. Within the Corpse Blood Valley, the authority over life and death lies with me. You may leave this office as a corpse. A searing heat pulsed from the blade. Sizzle! Mok Gyeong-un felt the warmth against his skin, a strange, burning energy emanating from the sword. It seems that this man is his descendant. Chong Ryong's voice suddenly vibrated within his mind, laced with an ancient recognition. Descendant? Mok Gyeong-un felt a jolt of bewilderment. Mortal. Ask the man in front of you, Chong Ryong urged, her words a direct instruction. Meanwhile, the demon mask pressed the superheated blade even closer. My patience is not very long. Quickly convince me. Has the Lee family now gained control over the fiery young chi within their bodies? Mok Gyeong-un interrupted, his voice calm, clear, cutting through the master's words. The demon mask's eyes, the only visible part of his face, widened in utter shock, trembling violently. He was indeed considerably surprised. How could this young boy possibly know about the fiery yang chi? This was knowledge guarded fiercely, known only to a select few within the highest echelons of the Heaven and Earth Society. With a sudden, violent movement, the demon mask pulled the sword away. Smack! His other hand shot out, seizing Mok Gyeong-un's collar, yanking him forward until their faces were inches apart. He whispered, his voice hoarse with incredulity. Who the hell are you? How do you? Mok Gyeong-un smiled brightly, a chillingly confident expression on his face. Are you asking about the Crimson Flame sword art? A chilling calm settled over the opulent chamber as Mok Gyeong-un offered a bright, almost disarming smile. His words, delivered with a casual air, pierced the heavy silence. You wish to know how I, of all people, stumbled upon the Crimson Flame sword art's deepest secret? The masked figure across from him, known only as the demon mask, visibly recoiled. His eyes, already wide behind the menacing visage, seemed to expand further, conveying a silent scream of disbelief. This young man, a mere hostage from the Yeonmok Sword Manor, sent into the desolate Corpse Blood Valley on direct orders, possessed knowledge that defied logic. The demon mask had understood the orders to be absolute, implying even the elimination of these hostages if necessary. Yet, here stood a youth, casually mentioning the intricate connection between the Crimson Flame sword art and the fiery yang chi. This was a truth, guarded ferociously, known only to the society leader himself, the head of the Lee family, his heir, and the master of the Sinister Valley, a mere quartet within the vast Heaven and Earth Society. Overwhelmed by a torrent of unanswerable questions, the demon mask's carefully constructed composure finally cracked. He lunged forward, his hand snatching Mok Gyeong-un's collar, the cold steel of his sword pressing firmly against the young man's throat once more. Who are you, truly? The demon mask snarled, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. Are you indeed the Yeonmok Sword Manor's successor? Mok Gyeong-un's gaze remained unwavering, a hint of amusement playing on his lips. There is no denying it. Nonsense! The demon mask spat, disbelief warring with rising fury. How could a simple child from the Yeonmok Sword Manor possibly grasp our family's most profound secrets? A sudden, sharp thought pierced the demon mask's rage, a flicker of suspicion that narrowed his eyes. A cold realization dawned. He had felt a strange unease from the very beginning. Could this entire encounter be a deliberate test orchestrated by the society leader? The memory of the society leader's decree echoed in his mind. Prove your unwavering loyalty for 4 generations. Only then shall the Lee family reclaim the title of king. This vow, a heavy burden, had shackled his lineage for decades. They had forfeited their royal status as penance for the bloody calamity of the Ho-Yong battle. For 3 generations, his grandfathers, his fathers, and now his own, they had faithfully served as the corpse Blood Valley's overseers, their loyalty subjected to relentless trials. Soon his eldest son, the young master, would ascend to this very position, completing the prophesied 4th generation. The demon mask bit down hard on his lip, the metallic taste of blood filling his mouth. Was their sacrifice still insufficient? Was this young man a deliberate provocation sent to test his emotional resolve? To be swayed, to yield to anger or covet this enigmatic talent would be an unforgivable lapse, an excuse for the society leader to forever withhold their ancestral title. A bitter thought briefly took root. Perhaps the society leader never intended to restore their kingship, merely prolonging their servitude with endless trials. Yet, with a monumental effort, the demon mask wrestled his composure back. He slowly withdrew his sword, loosening his grip on Mok Gyeong-un's collar. His voice, though strained, regained its usual calm. "Did the society leader send you here to test my resolve?" Mok Gyeong-un tilted his head, a hint of feigned innocence in his expression. What precisely do you imply?" "Do not play coy," the demon mask countered, his gaze piercing. Reflecting upon it, the situation was indeed peculiar. Why dispatch 2 hostages, neither of them eldest sons, and insist they enter this desolate place? A beat of silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken meaning. "If you are acting on his explicit command," the demon mask continued, a flicker of relief washing over him at his newfound clarity, "I will not interfere further." "Something," Mok Gyeong-un began, but the demon mask cut him off sharply. "There is no need for further discourse. My sole intention in summoning you was to ascertain if you were a spy. If, however, you are an emissary from the society leader himself, then further inquiry is unnecessary." He congratulated himself internally for regaining his reason, for not succumbing to provocation, or worse, attempting to recruit this enigmatic youth. Such a deviation would have undoubtedly reached the society leader's ears. Just as the demon mask relaxed, Mok Gyeong-un's voice cut through the momentary calm. "Why do you refuse to answer my question?" The demon mask's brow furrowed. Was this insolent youth truly attempting to provoke him now? He glared, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Even if you were sent by him, know your place. Though I may not be one of the 5 kings or 3 chief masters, I am a valley master. My rank places me among the top 12 most powerful figures in the Heaven and Earth Society." Mok Gyeong-un's mind processed this new information. Within the top 12 in rank, that was indeed valuable intelligence. A whisper echoed within Mok Gyeong-un's thoughts, a voice not his own, clear and precise. "The Lee family should have received the title of king from the Three Veins. How did you end up becoming a valley master?" The demon mask flinched, his anger flaring anew. "You dare!" He stopped himself, remembering the unspoken directive. If this young man were not a direct instrument of the society leader, an arm would have been severed right then. Fury radiated from him, a palpable heat in the room. "If you do not leave this place at once," the demon mask growled, his voice laced with venom, "I will cut you down, regardless of whose orders you claim to follow." For a fleeting moment, Mok Gyeong-un saw a vivid image of himself being cleaved in 2. The sheer murderous intent emanating from the demon mask was astonishing, like invisible, razor-sharp blades drawing across his skin. Yet, instead of fear, a strange intrigue bloomed within him. It was akin to gazing upon a breathtaking vista from a perilous height. The demon mask stared, utterly dumbfounded. This boy, far from cowering, merely smirked, an expression of genuine curiosity on his face. Was he truly so brazen? Was this yet another, even more refined test from the society leader, designed to push him to the brink of his sanity? Even knowing, the effort to suppress his rage was Herculean. Mok Gyeong-un spoke again, his tone conversational. Is the reason for the glove on your right hand and your mask because you still struggle to control the fiery young chi, and you suffered severe burns? The demon mask's hand trembled, his fingers twitching, barely restraining himself from seizing the hilt of his sword. This youth possessed an unparalleled talent for infuriating him. If you cannot depart under your own power, it seems I shall have to personally escort you out. The demon mask rose, his hand reaching for Mok Gyeong-un, intent on forcing him from the room. At that instant, Mok Gyeong-un intercepted the demon mask's sword-pointing finger, his own body shifting into a fluid, sword-drawing stance. The demon mask, about to effortlessly shatter this insolent display with his golden spiral technique, froze. His eyes widened, a tremor running through his frame. This is... Every executive within the Heaven and Earth Society would immediately recognize the sword-drawing stance of that sword art. It bore an uncanny resemblance to the initial form of the heavenly vein sword art. Could it be? The demon mask's gaze swept over Mok Gyeong-un, searching for answers. He knew the faces of all the society leader's personal disciples, but this boy was entirely unfamiliar. Had the society leader recently taken on a new pupil? His lips parted, his voice cautious, almost a whisper. Could it be that you are his? Before he could finish, Mok Gyeong-un extended his sword-pointing finger, tracing a gentle circular trajectory in the air. It was like the perfect curve of a full moon. No, the demon mask's pupils dilated. Though superficially similar to the heavenly vein sword art, the flow, the very essence of the form, was fundamentally different. This was not the heavenly vein sword art. This was, Mok Gyeong-un's finger continued its elegant, precise movement, weaving intricate patterns in the air, each stroke precisely targeting the 8 vital points along the demon mask's central meridian. The demon mask inwardly gasped at the sheer perfection of the sword form. Without the accompanying sword intent, it was as if an unrivaled swordmaster was demonstrating the pinnacle of their art. The demon mask retreated half a step, one hand moving behind his back. With his sword-pointing finger, devoid of internal energy or sword intent, he parried Mok Gyeong-un's precise attacks. All but one. I cannot evade this. The demon mask leaped backward, a desperate, reflexive movement to avoid Mok Gyeong-un's final thrust, a sword-pointing finger aimed directly at his brow. The sheer complexity and flawless execution of the final move rendered it impossible to block. Had Mok Gyeong-un continued his technique, the situation would have become far more perilous. The demon mask swallowed hard, his throat dry. No doubt about it. He had never witnessed it firsthand, but his grandfather had spoken of it. He blurted the name, unthinking. The lunar vein sword art. Oh. You recognize it? Mok Gyeong-un replied, a genuine flicker of surprise in his eyes. What? The demon mask was momentarily bewildered. He had hoped his terrifying suspicion was unfounded. But was it truly the lunar vein sword art? I thought the grandson of Li Hua-moon might not recognize it, hidden as you are behind that mask. This is unexpected. The words echoed exactly what the voice in Mok Gyeong-un's mind had uttered. The demon mask's reaction was immediate and visceral. A sharp, metallic shing filled the air as his sword flashed from its scabbard, its scarlet tip aimed directly at Mok Gyeong-un's throat. An immense, palpable wave of murderous intent rolled off him, suffocating the air. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice trembling with barely contained fury. "How do you know the lunar vein sword art? And what did you just say about Li Hua-moon?" I would prefer if you asked one question at a time, Mok Gyeong-un replied, his composure unwavering. He needed time to relay the inner voice's instructions, but the aura emanating from the sword was truly formidable, an oppressive weight that made his flesh prickle. A faint sizzle could be heard as the air around the blade shimmered. The sword, without even touching him, radiated an intense heat, as if it would melt his very flesh. Earlier he had merely sensed the heat. Now the sword visibly glowed, a pulsating scarlet. I cannot block this, Mok Gyeong-un thought, assessing the impossible task. Could he concentrate his death energy into a single point to counter it? It seemed futile. This man's martial prowess appeared equal, if not superior, to that of the bright sword king Sun Yun. A hiss escaped from the demon mask's arm, holding the searing blade. Steam rose from his sleeve as the intense heat, originating from the sword, spread throughout his entire body. The room instantly became an inferno. The demon mask's eyes burned with an unholy light as he glared at Mok Gyeong-un. "I have no patience for your games. Speak, now. Otherwise, I will drag you to the sect headquarters myself, and report that I've learned the lunar vein sword art." "Shut up!" With a guttural roar, the demon mask ripped at the edge of his own mask, tearing it away. A gasp might have escaped Mok Gyeong-un's lips if he hadn't been so utterly focused. One side of the demon mask's face was grotesquely distorted, scarred by a severe, horrifying burn. It was a disfigurement so profound that the mask became completely understandable. The demon mask, his eyes trembling with a raw, desperate intensity, spoke again. "The lunar vein sword art's lineage has been severed. Even its sole secret manual remained undecipherable, lost to the ages. How could you possibly? Are you asking because you truly do not know?" Mok Gyeong-un countered. "What? You just said it yourself." That you read the secret manual? How could that be? Even the head of the Primal Killing Pavilion, who oversaw all esoteric arts within the Heaven and Earth Society, had failed to decipher that manual. Yet this youth claimed to have read it? The demon mask, now revealed as Lee Ji-yom, frowned deeply. It was hard enough to believe he had read the manual, but the knowledge this boy spouted about his own family, the Lee family, was utterly beyond comprehension. "That's impossible. Merely by reading the secret manual." "Of course you couldn't know," Mok Gyeong-un interrupted. "What? How could I know about the Lee family's Crimson Flame Sword art or Fiery Young Chi just by reading the secret manual? Then how do I know?" At Mok Gyeong-un's question, Lee Ji-yom's frown deepened. "Could it be that you're that person's dad's?" "Wrong." Mok Gyeong-un cut him off once more. "If not a descendant, then how?" "I am that person's direct previous disciple, you see." Lee Ji-yom's expression solidified into a mask of pure horror. Was this brat deliberately toying with him? His grandfather had told him the tale. The previous society leader of the Heaven and Earth Society had personally ripped out his heart, severed his limbs, and beheaded him. His grisly remains had been displayed for all to witness, a punishment for the heinous crime of the bloody calamity. That had happened 100 years ago. How, then, could this young man, who appeared no older than 17 or 18, be his direct, living disciple? "Are you truly asking me to believe such words?" Lee Ji-yom seethed, his voice laced with the promise of death. "Are you truly wishing for death? Seeing once is better than hearing 100 times. As the last word left Mok Gyeong-un's lips, he reached into his bosom, producing a small, intricately carved wooden doll. He formed a complex hand seal, his voice rising in a low, resonant chant. "Origin of the world, return to the source, release." Lee Ji-yom stared, utterly dumbfounded. Was this fellow truly mad, embracing a death wish? He was no esoteric master, yet he chanted some bizarre incantation, like a madman. Suddenly, an impossible phenomenon unfolded. A hazy, crimson mist began to seep from the walls of the office, thickening into rivulets. A viscous, coppery liquid, unmistakably blood, began to trickle down, pooling on the ornate floor. The surroundings were rapidly becoming drenched in a grotesque substance. A shudder ran through Lee Ji-yom's body. What in the world was happening? Believing Mok Gyeong-un had unleashed some dark sorcery, he raised his fiery young chi-infused sword, intent on beheading the impudent youth. But then, his eyes widened, threatening to tear from their sockets at the sight that was now rising from the crimson pool on the floor. A figure of peerless beauty emerged, her eyes a deep, unsettling blood red, a crown resting upon her head, and a long, elegant pipe held delicately in her hand. The moment Lee Ji-yom beheld her, an overwhelming, ancient presence filled the room, and an image, seared into his memory from his grandfather Lee Hwa-moon's whispered tales, naturally overlapped with the terrifying reality before him. The sting of a fresh bruise beneath Lee Ji-yom's eye was a familiar ache, dull compared to the sharp barb of the words that followed him like a shadow. He stood before his grandfather, a child of 11, the questions etched into his spirit visible on his face. "Grandfather," he began, his voice thin with suppressed frustration, Is our Lee family truly not a family of traitors? His grandfather's gaze, ancient and heavy with unspoken burdens, met his. Ji-yom, he replied, the question hanging in the air like smoke. Is that question related to the scars on your face? A silence stretched between them, thick with the weight of years. Lee Ji-yom had no answer, not one that could truly encompass the daily crucible of the sect's martial arts academy. Every day brought fresh taunts. Traitors, a family of betrayal. The words clung to him like dust, unseen yet pervasive. He had tried to ignore them, to fight back against the relentless tide of scorn and harassment. But it was a futile struggle. The label was a shackle, inherited from his grandfather's unwavering allegiance to the disappeared lunar vein. It was the price of a loyalty he had never chosen, a consequence he didn't understand. Is it not a shackle, he murmured, his voice barely a whisper, that our Lee family can never escape from? His grandfather's face softened, pity a fleeting shadow in his eyes as he pulled the boy into a warm embrace. His voice, gentle yet firm, held the resonant wisdom of weathered rock. Do you remember what this old man told you? Ji-yom, nestled in the familiar comfort, recited the well-worn phrase, lying on firewood and tasting gall. It was a maxim his grandfather had repeated countless times, a philosophy born of enduring hardship for a greater, distant future. It meant sleeping on thorny brushwood, chewing on bile, pushing through present pain for a hoped-for tomorrow. His grandfather, once one of the sect's 10 founders, had fallen from grace when the lunar vein disappeared. His honor had plummeted, leaving this bitter residue for his descendants. The silence returned, but this time it felt different. Ji-yom pulled back, his young face clouded. Why aren't you answering? His grandfather prompted, his voice laced with concern. I don't know anymore, Ji-yom confessed, the words a raw outpouring of his shattered spirit. He had tried to endure, just as his grandfather had always urged, but the effort was futile, his heart splintering further with each passing day. He longed for an explanation, for an end to the suffering that afflicted their family, a suffering for a sin they had not committed. Why, merely for pledging loyalty were they rejected so utterly by the very sect their ancestor had helped establish? A desperate thought, born of youthful frustration, escaped his lips. Grandfather, why don't you just pledge eternal loyalty to the society leader? The words hung in the air, unfinished, when a terrifying change swept over his grandfather's face. A flash of pure, unadulterated rage, an expression Lee Ji-yom had never witnessed before, contorted the features he knew so well. It was a visceral fury, ignited by the mere mention of abandoning his loyalty to escape their branded stigma. Ji-yom flinched, reeling from the unexpected intensity. Why was he angry? Had he spoken wrongly? A rebellious surge stirred within his chest, hot and unfamiliar. Did I say something wrong? Why must we, a meritorious family and one of the sect's founding members? His protest was cut short by an ear-splitting pain, a sharp, concussive force against his ear that left him stunned and reeling. He clutched his head, groaning. His grandfather, eyes bloodshot with an unyielding conviction, spoke through gritted teeth. Regardless of the outcome, it is natural for a retainer to trust their lord until the end. Did this old man teach you otherwise? The pain subsided, leaving a ringing emptiness, but the defiance in Ji-yom's heart only swelled. That so-called lord has gone astray, he challenged, his voice thick with injustice, and our family has even been branded as traitors. But what meaning does that have? And didn't you also accept that fault, which is why you accepted being demoted to a valley master and imprisoned in the corpse blood valley for 4 generations? The more he thought, the more infuriating it became. Why had his grandfather not vehemently asserted his innocence, his lack of connection to that person's downfall? Why had they accepted sharing in another's sins, simply for the sake of a bond that seemed to have brought them nothing but pain? He couldn't accept it, not anymore. After that day, conversation between Lee Ji-yom and his grandfather ceased. A chasm opened, filled with unspoken resentments and the heavy burden of inherited shame. Ji-yom channeled his surging emotions into a singular pursuit, martial arts. He gritted his teeth, immersing himself utterly in the rigorous training, finding in its demanding discipline a temporary respite from his turmoil. He He couldn't endure without losing himself in something. His dedication bore fruit. Before reaching adulthood, he became the first in his family to successfully reach the 5th stage of the Crimson Flame Sword Art's advanced technique, the blazing cultivation. A flicker of hope ignited within him, a belief that he could forge his own path, perhaps even redeem his family's name through sheer strength. "I can do it," he whispered to himself, a defiant promise. None of his ancestors had ever completed the Crimson Flame Sword Art. Even his grandfather's limit had been the 8th stage. The path was fraught with peril, for as one cultivated the blazing cultivation, the fiery yang qi within grew exponentially, not merely strengthening the practitioner, but also threatening to consume them from within. Yet Ji-yom felt an audacious confidence. He believed he could surpass the 8th stage, even reach the legendary 9th and 10th realms. Perhaps this excessive desire, this burning ambition, became a poison. His father's warning, offered with a gravity that went unheeded, echoed faintly in his memory. Do not attempt the 6th stage until the 5th stage is perfectly ingrained in your body. Lee Ji-yom ignored it. He lunged into the attempt, a reckless surge of power. A scream tore from his throat as his body ignited, flames erupting from his skin. He had sought to imbue the Crimson Flame Sword Art with fiery yang qi upon reaching the 6th stage, but his ambition had outstripped his control, unleashing a devastating backlash. In an instant, his arm and half his face were engulfed, searing agony stealing his consciousness. The rampaging, fiery yang qi was a wild beast, far beyond his ability to tame. He writhed. Pain, a consuming inferno. Was this how it would end? His life snuffed out by his own unchecked greed? A strong hand suddenly seized him, pulling him from the heart of the raging fire. The sensation was immediate, profound. The chaotic, fiery yang qi, once an untamed storm within him, began to drain away, absorbed by the one who held him. The tempest calmed, stability returning to his ravaged body. Consciousness, a fragile thread, returned amidst the receding agony. He looked up, his eyes widening in shock. It was his grandfather, Lee Hwa-moon. He, like his grandfather and father before him, knew the terrible truth. To forcibly accept fiery yang qi without perfect control was to invite destruction. The fire would turn against itself, consuming its wielder. A chilling sizzle filled the air. Ji-yom's body stabilized, but his grandfather's began to burn. The flames that had consumed Ji-yom were a mere spark compared to the inferno engulfing Lee Hwa-moon. "Ah, no, no, grandfather, grandfather!" Ji-yom stumbled forward, his heart tearing. He stretched out a hand, desperate to quell the raging fiery yang qi devouring his grandfather. But Lee Hwa-moon, even in his agony, used his profound true energy to erect an invisible barrier, preventing his grandson from approaching. "Grandfather!" "No, Grandpa!" Ji-yom pleaded, tears streaming down his blistered face. It had been nearly 4 years since they had truly been this close, and now, in this moment of ultimate terror, they were separated by an unseen wall. His grandfather's body, sustained by his immense internal energy, was slowly burning. Flesh turned red, then oozed. "Grandpa, please! Please!" Ji-yom pushed against the barrier, desperate to break through. Lee Hwa-moon slowly shook his head, his face a mask of bitter resignation. Ji-yom read the shape of his lips, the silent command that tore through his heart. "Don't come, my grandson." Watching his grandfather's body slowly consume itself, mere feet away, was an unbearable torment. Despair was a leaden weight in his chest. He yearned for the barrier to weaken, for a chance to intervene, to subdue the fiery yang qi. The helplessness was agonizing. "Please, please," he begged, his voice raw. He pleaded with his grandfather to withdraw his true energy, to let him help. But Lee Hwa-moon did not yield. He held the barrier firm until his flesh was completely consumed, until his breath ceased. Only then did the barrier of true energy shimmer and dissolve. A guttural scream ripped from Lee Ji-yom's throat, echoing in the desolate chamber. The despair of witnessing his grandfather's slow, agonizing death, knowing it was because of his own recklessness, was a tragedy beyond words. He wished with every fiber of his being to exchange his life for his grandfather's, but it was impossible. He wailed, a primal lament that lasted for what felt like an eternity, until his body gave out, and he fainted from sheer exhaustion. When he awoke, the world seemed to accelerate, events unfolding with a terrifying swiftness. The funeral for his deceased grandfather had to be arranged. He confessed everything to his family, including his father, accepting full responsibility for his grandfather's death. But no one blamed him. "Even if you were hasty, it's not your fault," his father said, his voice heavy with grief yet firm. "It's the fault of all of us for not teaching you properly and giving weak warnings." "Please, please punish me," Ji-young pleaded, desperate for an outlet for his overwhelming guilt. His father, now the head of the family, shook his head. Punishment was not what his grandfather, Lee Hwa-moon, would have wanted. If your grandfather had resented you even a little until his last breath, then do so. Ji-young fell silent. He hadn't. Not a flicker of resentment, not a hint of blame. Even as his body burned, his grandfather had maintained a stoic, almost indifferent expression, as if to shield Ji-young from the pain of his worry. It had all been consideration, a final act of selfless love. Throughout the funeral, Lee Ji-young wept silently, tears that felt impossibly deep. After the sorrowful ceremony, Lee Ji-young discovered a line of poetry, a final message from his grandfather. It was a will, etched in verse. "Ah, the day I looked at the black robe and followed behind always lingers. No matter how much time passes, how could I ever forget that time in my dreams?" He thought he had no tears left, that his well of sorrow was dry. Yet, seeing these words, a fresh, painful torrent flowed, as if squeezed from the depths of his being. His grandfather, a revered founder, had been shunned by most executives, including the society leader. Yet he had insisted on unwavering loyalty until his very last breath. Did he truly believe in that person so profoundly? His heart twisted with conflicting emotions. He found that person, the absent lord, so hateful, the root of all his family's suffering. Yet his grandfather's last words, expressing such poignant longing for his former master, complicated everything. The bastard who inherited the Lee family's orthodox lineage had dared to insult his grandfather's sacred loyalty and will. "Grandfather," he whispered, the name a profound promise. In that moment, Lee Ji-young made a decision. He would inherit his grandfather's will, that noble loyalty upheld through immense suffering and patience, even unto death. This unworthy grandson will carry on that loyalty. Even if it remained a terrible stigma, even if it meant a life of enduring hardship, he would carry on that will. He would restore his deceased grandfather's honor. "It can't be!" The words were a choked whisper from Lee Ji-young, the master of the Corpse Blood Valley, as he gazed at the impossible spectacle unfolding before his eyes. At first he dismissed it, convinced Mok Gyeong-un was merely employing some bizarre sorcery, a trick of light and shadow. But then, as the being coalesced from the swirling blood, taking tangible form, he was rendered speechless. A peerless beauty emerged, her eyes the color of fresh blood, a crown adorning her head, a long pipe clutched in elegant fingers. Her face held a captivating paradox of arrogance and majesty. The moment his gaze locked onto her, the image of that person his deceased grandfather, Lee Hwa-moon, had spoken of, his words ringing in Ji-young's ears, naturally overlapped. "Don't hate that person too much," his grandfather had advised, his voice soft yet firm. The master that this old man devoted half his life to serving was not the despicable traitor you think. That person was stronger and more beautiful than anyone else in the sect. He had always brushed off those words, deeming them mere sentimentality, overshadowed by the deep wounds he had carried through his childhood. Yet, the instant he saw her, truly saw her, his grandfather's words resonated with profound understanding. They said those who rule were simply born to do so. A wave of comprehension, almost an epiphany, washed over him. The being before his eyes was, quite literally, born to rule. Her mere presence, the way she seemed to look down upon him as if to subdue, sent a shiver through him, eliciting a primal reverence he hadn't known he possessed. Then Mok Gyeong-un's voice cut through the stillness, cool and inquiring. "How do you feel after directly seeing that person?" That person, Lee Ji-young's heart hammered against his ribs, a wild drum in his chest. Was this being, shimmering before him, truly the one his grandfather had longed for until the bitter end? At that moment, his legs gave out. He sank to one knee, a thunderous thud echoing in the chamber. It didn't matter if this being was a ghost, a revenant, or something else entirely. He had made a solemn vow before his grandfather's spirit tablet, to inherit the noble loyalty his grandfather had upheld until death. Lee Ji-yom bowed his head, clasping his hands together in the deepest reverence. Lee Ji-yom, head of the Lee family, pays his respects to the Lord, the master of the lunar vein. A glint of genuine interest sparked in Mok Gyeong-un's eyes at Lee Ji-yom's profound greeting. Meanwhile, Chung Ri-yong, the ghostly figure, glanced at Mok Gyeong-un with a triumphant, knowing gaze. She had boasted to him, had she not? She told him that even if other loyalties had withered, Lee Hwa-moon's blood descendant would surely uphold the oath. Mok Gyeong-un had sneered inwardly at her words, finding them foolish. A century had passed. It was ridiculous to believe such loyalty could endure. You've become a vengeful spirit, yet you believe in humans? He had thought it truly foolish. A few short years could erase all memory, all connection. To believe loyalty would persist when the object of that loyalty had died and disappeared? A vain hope, nothing more? But now something truly unexpected had happened. It turned out differently from his intention. Mok Gyeong-un pressed his lips into a thin line. He had anticipated her disappointment, the shattering of her vain hopes. Instead, he had only made her elated. How unfortunate. Still, it wasn't entirely bad. The fact that this fierce loyalty had been passed down for 100 years meant it was a powerful tool, certainly worth using. Just as Chung Ri-yong prepared to speak, a long, drawn-out syllable escaping her lips, Mok Gyeong-un clapped his hands, forming a hand seal with one hand, and extended the wooden doll towards her. Forbidden seal. Formless figure. Two names become one. Quickly obey and seal. As the incantation concluded, her spirit body, which had barely manifested, was instantly sucked back into the wooden doll. With her disappearance, the blood-stained ghost realm she had conjured vanished as well, and the office instantly reverted to its original mundane state. A shiver ran down Lee Ji-yom's spine. He frowned, raising his head, his heart still thrumming with the recent encounter. Where had that awe-inspiring figure vanished to? Of course, Chung Ri-yong was trapped inside the wooden doll, seething. A faint wriggling emanated from the doll, and Chung Ri-yong's furious voice echoed directly into Mok Gyeong-un's ear. "You damn mortal bastard! What the hell are you doing?" She had barely revealed herself, barely confirmed the loyalty of the descendant. She should have drawn him in, given him orders. Why had he suddenly sealed her away again? Mok Gyeong-un ignored her furious demands, his gaze fixed on Lee Ji-yom. "Did you see?" he said, his voice smooth and persuasive. "That person has become a vengeful spirit with lingering resentment and is with me." "You bastard!" Lee Ji-yom rose slowly, his eyes narrowing as he scrutinized Mok Gyeong-un. The appearance of that person just now had been undeniably real, no mere illusion. "Where is that person?" he demanded, his voice edged with urgency. "I just told you," Mok Gyeong-un replied, a slight smile playing on his lips. "That person is with me." "Then let me see that person again," Ji-yom insisted, a desperate plea in his tone. "I have so many things I want to ask." Mok Gyeong-un merely pointed to himself with his thumb. "Isn't that person right in front of your eyes?" "What?" Ji-yom retorted, confusion clouding his features. Mok Gyeong-un's smile widened, a disarmingly bright expression. "I am that person's vessel of possession. It may be difficult for you to understand, but when that person possesses me, that person and I become one." Inside the wooden doll, Chung Ru-yong let out an inaudible, incredulous gasp. The sheer audacity of the mortal. He had barely given her a glimpse, then sealed her away just to spout such blatant lies. But Mok Gyeong-un's purpose was clear. That loyalty, spanning generations. He would take it for himself.